However, with Jiang Tianlin Laozu's push, it still clawed at Changhe Laozu's chest. At this moment, Changhe Laozu, who was imprisoned by the Yingsu treasured mirror, suddenly opened his eyes wide. Beads of sweat rolled down his forehead, and his jaw trembled as he let out an angry roar. Changhe Laozu finally broke free from the Yingsu treasured mirror's imprisonment. At the same time, he tried his best to dodge to the side, trying to avoid Jiang Tianlin Laozu's attack. Suddenly, Changhe Laozu, who was imprisoned by the Yingsu treasured mirror, opened his eyes wide and beads of sweat rolled down his forehead. His jaw trembled and he let out a furious roar. Changhe Laozu finally broke free from the Yingsu treasured mirror's imprisonment. At the same time, he tried his best to dodge to the side, trying to avoid Jiang Tianlin Laozu's attack. However, in the blink of an eye, Changhe Laozu only managed to avoid a vital point on his chest. The claws still managed to grab onto Changhe Laozu's left rib cage, easily breaking the astral energy protecting his body and breaking 2 of his ribs. At the same time, a hidden force pierced into his abdomen. Changhe Laozu could no longer hold back a mouthful of blood and it finally spilled out from the corner of his mouth. Although this injury was nothing to Changhe Laozu, he was extremely wary of Jiang Tianlin Laozu in front of him. When Ancestor Jiang Tianlin saw that Ancestor Long River had broken free from the shackles of the Yingxu treasured mirror, he sighed inwardly. If it wasn't for the fact that he had refined the mirror in a hurry, he wouldn't have been able to unleash the full power of the shackles. Otherwise, Ancestor Long River wouldn't have been able to break free so easily. At this time, Jiang Tianlin Laozu had achieved his goal of delaying the 3 Dharma adepts. The Yingsu treasured mirror above his head suddenly spun and shot out a beam of light towards Yushang and Wuji Laozu. Just now, Changhe Laozu's encounter had startled the 2 of them and they hurriedly dodged to the side. However, Jiang Tianlin Laozu took the opportunity to jump out of the battle between the 3 of them. As he laughed, Jiang Tianlin Laozu swaggered off, leaving Changhe Laozu and the other 2 Dharma adepts behind, not daring to chase after him. After a long time, Changhe Laozu sighed and said, "Who is this person? His cultivation level is only about the same as ours, but this strength, he is actually able to fight 1 against 3 and not be at a disadvantage." Yushang Laozu's eyes were a little dazed as he muttered, "This person must be a Dharma adept from one of the big sects in the Central Plains, or maybe even a cultivator from one of the big sections. Otherwise, how could he be so strong? That's right, he must be a cultivator from one of the big sections." Changhe Laozu nodded and did not say anything. However, he heard Wuji Laozu's cold laugh. "Brother Changhe, when did the Yingsu treasured mirror become the possession of your Yinghe sect's ancestor? Can we ask you about this?" At this time, Yushang Laozu also reacted and said in a strange tone, "Brother Wuji is right. The Yingsu treasured mirror is a treasure of the Yinghe sect. It is said that the mirror was originally a treasure of the Yinghe sect, but if a cultivator who is not from the Yinghe sect tries to enter it, he will be hit by a ray of light from the mirror and then be immobilized. Brother Changhe must have known what the treasure is, but you made up such an absurd reason. Do you think we are 3 years old?" Patriarch Long River took out a jade bottle from his bosom and poured out a pill from it before carefully placing it in his mouth. His complexion, which was previously injured, immediately improved a lot. Wuji Laozu saw that Changhe Laozu was still so calm in the face of their questioning, and his face immediately became angry. However, he heard Changhe Laozu say, "The 2 of you don't need to be like this. If the 2 of you were in the old man's place, what would you have done? I don't think the old man needs to say anything more about this matter, right?" Wuji Laozu snorted coldly and did not say another word. Yushang Laozu, on the other hand, chuckled. Clearly, the 2 of them had silently agreed with Changhe Laozu's words. Changhe Laozu saw that the 2 of them did not continue to harp on this matter, and so he said, "It's just that today's matter is obviously very strange. Actually, the day before yesterday, the old man had already discovered traces of another early Dharma adept. It was just that that person was unusually vigilant, and after sensing that something was wrong, he quickly escaped from the old man's pursuit. Although the person today is not the same person as the person from the day before, the Yinghe Mountains have been silent for thousands of years without a Dharma adept appearing. Now, two people have appeared at the same time. Don't you all find this strange? Yu Shang Laozu's expression changed, and he said, could it be that the Yingtian sect still has some sort of legacy hidden within the mountains that has not been discovered until now, and now, someone has clearly found some clues? Changhe Laozu nodded, but then he heard Wu Ji Laozu say, yesterday, I also discovered traces of a Dharma adept appearing in the mountains. Changhe Laozu's expression became serious, and he turned to look at Wu Ji Laozu and asked, is that true? Changhe Laozu saw that Wu Ji Laozu was about to explode, so he changed his words and said, if that's the case, I'm afraid that the Yinghe Mountains will be very lively again this time. Yu Shang Laozu said in a low voice, in that case, why would these people come here? If it's about secret territories, then that person just now obtained the Yinghe treasured mirror, and this treasure itself is actually a secret territory of a cavern. Could it be that these people suddenly have clues about several secret territories? How could the Yingtian sect still have so many secret territories? What else could they be here for? Changhe Laozu's next words seemed to have been guessed by the other two Laozus as well. It could only be the Yingtian sect. When Changhe Laozu personally mentioned the Yingtian sect, a look of greed flashed across the faces of the three of them. This Yingtian mountain range is owned by our three clans, and our three clans are the true heirs of the Yingtian sect. The Yingtian sect should also be inherited by our three clans. As Changhe Laozu said this, he sized up the two people in front of him. Seeing the greed and fanaticism in their eyes, a mocking smile flashed across Changhe Laozu's face. Lu Ping waited for Jiang Tianlin Laozu in a remote area. Seeing how relaxed Jiang Tianlin Laozu was, Lu Ping could not help but feel a little envious. Uncle Master, you're fighting 1 against 3? Jiang Tianlin Laozu smiled and said, what's there to show off about fighting 1 against 3? I've heard that you've even fought 1 against 5 and 7 cultivators of the same level. Lu Ping chuckled and said, that's different. You're fighting 1 against 3 at the Dharma stage. Cultivators who are able to reach the Dharma stage are all extremely talented. This is much more difficult than me fighting against those cultivators who have unstable foundations and rely on external forces to increase their cultivation. Jiang Tianlin Laozu chuckled and handed him a mirror. This time, it's all thanks to this Yingtian mirror that you found. This is a spirit-nurturing level grotto heaven treasure, and it also has a magical power that can emit a ray of light to imprison the opponent within. It's a rare treasure. This is actually a spirit-nurturing level grotto heaven treasure? Lu Ping looked at the mirror in his hand in surprise. The surface of the mirror was covered with a layer of dense qi. With a wave of his hand, the dense qi dispersed, and Lu Ping saw the small lake, the mountain peak, the palace on the top of the mountain that was covered with restrictions, and the spirit grass that grew all over the mountains and plains. Suddenly, these scenes flashed on the surface of the copper mirror. But I don't think the grotto heaven in this treasure is very spacious. It's far inferior to our sect's second-ranked grotto heaven, the Jade Grotto Heaven. Jiang Tianlin Laozu smiled and said, the higher the level of the grotto heaven treasure, the larger the size of the grotto heaven. The quality of the grotto heaven treasure is more dependent on the stability of the space in the grotto heaven. In fact, the size of our sect's first inheritance, the true spirit grotto heaven, is not as large as the Jade Grotto Heaven. This Yingtian mirror is essentially a treasure that can attack and grotto heaven at the same time, so it will inevitably affect the size of the grotto heaven. In order to not arouse the attention of others, the two of them made a big detour in the mountain range before sneaking back into the rocky cave through the river. Chapter 648. In the rocky cave, everyone took a look at the Mirror of Abundance. Everyone's faces were filled with joy at obtaining such a spirit-nurturing level grotto heaven treasure. In particular, the Mirror of Abundance was not just a grotto heaven treasure. It contained the light of confinement. Jiang Tianlin Laozu had only refined it in a hurry, but it had the power to confine a Dharma manifestation stage cultivator. If Jiang Tianlin Laozu completely refined this mirror, how much more powerful would it be? Jiang Tianlin Laozu saw everyone's reaction and could not help but smile. The power of this mirror seems strong, but it can only be used for surprise attacks. Once the opponent is prepared, it is not too difficult to avoid or resist the light of confinement. Unlike everyone else who was amazed by the power of the light of confinement, Sage Xian Su was more interested in the grotto heaven space in the mirror of abundance, or rather, the endless spirit herb garden in the grotto heaven space. The rare spirit herbs in this spirit herb garden are secondary. The key is that the scale of this spirit herb garden can be said to be the largest among the spirit herb gardens in our sect. Moreover, most of the spirit herbs in this garden have already matured. If we can integrate it into a good cultivation system with the spirit herb gardens in our sect, then even if our sect still can't be completely self-sufficient in terms of spirit herbs, we can still have an endless supply of them. As a large sect in the past, the spirit herbs produced in one grotto heaven treasure were almost a third of all the spirit herb gardens in our sect. This kind of heritage is really beyond our sect's reach. Sage Xian Su's words were recognized by everyone. Sage Xian Sun stretched out his finger and drew across the surface of the mirror. The location in the grotto heaven shown in the mirror changed. When it stopped, the mirror showed the palace surrounded by the restriction on the peak of the mountain in the center of the grotto heaven. Enlightened Master Xian Su pointed at the palace and said, "This must be the most important place in this grotto heaven." Senior brother Tian Lin said that he had yet to completely refine this grotto heaven. I believe he was referring to this place. Jiang Tianlin Laozu placed the bronze mirror on the stone table and then jumped into the bronze mirror. When everyone looked again, Jiang Tianlin Laozu had already landed in front of the palace on the peak of the mountain. Then, Jiang Tianlin Laozu made a few hand seals and the restriction on the surface of the palace suddenly shook violently. As Jiang Tianlin Laozu made the hand seals faster and faster, the restriction on the surface of the palace shook more and more violently. The image on the bronze mirror became more and more blurred, and the bronze mirror itself on the stone table suddenly began to jump, making banging sounds. The bronze mirror jumped for about the time it took to drink a cup of tea before it gradually calmed down. The blurry surface of the mirror also gradually became clear. However, the image inside was constantly changing, constantly showing the scene in the grotto heaven. After another incense stick of time, the image on the mirror finally stopped at the palace on the peak of the mountain. Then, Jiang Tianlin Laozu walked out of the palace. Then, Jiang Tianlin Laozu raised his head and smiled at everyone outside the mirror. Suddenly, the surface of the bronze mirror shot out a ray of light. Everyone hurriedly dodged. The ray of light shone on the stone wall and a spatial portal appeared from the light. Jiang Tianlin Laozu walked out of the portal and pointed at the bronze mirror on the stone table. The abundant void treasure mirror disappeared from the stone table. After Jiang Tianlin Laozu came out of the bronze mirror, he stretched out his hand and threw 2 jade slips to Lu Ping. He said, "There are some jade slips about the cultivation of spirit herbs in the palace. I think they will be useful to you. Remember them first. Later, take them back to the sect." After saying that, he took out a mid-grade pill furnace and handed it to Lu Ping. Jiang Tianlin Laozu smiled and said to everyone, "The cultivator who guarded or managed this grotto heaven in the past must have been very interested in alchemy. However, this person's alchemy skills are not very good. In addition to many inheritance about the cultivation of spirit herbs, there is also a mid-grade pill furnace magic tool. There also seems to be a fire seed. However, no one has looked after it for thousands of years and it has long been extinguished. The rest are some blood condensation pill recipes and alchemy insights. They are not very valuable." Daoist Xian Ju said with some disappointment, "So there are not many valuable treasures in the palace." Jiang Tianlin Laozu smiled and said, "This palace is the core of the treasure mirror. No matter what, we have to break the restriction of this palace. Otherwise, I won't be able to completely refine the abundant void treasure mirror in my hands, and I won't be able to fully display the power of the treasure mirror." After Daoist Xian Ju took the second bell cauldron pill, his internal injuries had mostly healed. The rest could only rely on a long period of recuperation. However, this also prevented Daoist Xian Ju's injuries from affecting his cultivation foundation. When Daoist Xian Ju saw Jiang Tianlin Laozu appear, he smiled and said, "Now, the spirit mineral lode in the Yingtian dojo will belong to our sect again. With the rarity and preciousness of a grotto heaven treasure, I think Laozu from the other sects will not have a grotto heaven treasure on him. Moreover, the abundant void treasure mirror is a spirit nurturing level grotto heaven treasure that has condensed 7 restrictions. Daoist Xian Chen didn't seem to agree with Daoist Xian Ju's point of view. He said, "I'm afraid it's not that simple." According to Martial Nephew Liu, the location of the spirit mineral lode is not a secret. It can be said that the cultivators of the various sects will immediately discover its location after entering the Yingtian dojo. At that time, once senior brother Jiang starts to move the spirit mineral lode, he will inevitably be stopped by the cultivators of the various sections. If they can't get it, naturally they won't let our sect get it. Even if the various sects agree to move the spirit mineral lode to the abundant void treasure, I'm afraid they will have to divide the spirit mineral lode as the price. At that time, our sect may not get much benefit. Jiang Tianlin Laozu also had a look of pity on his face. After thinking for a while, he asked Daoist Xian Chen, junior sister, how long will it take to set up the Great Relocation Formation? Daoist Xian Chen shook his head and said, 2 hours is enough. I have some ready-made formations and tools here, but the problem is not how long it takes for me to set up the formation. Once I start to set up the Great Relocation Formation, the cultivators of the various sects will definitely guess that senior brother has a heavenly abode magic treasure on him. At that time, it's hard to say whether or not the Great Relocation Formation will be successfully set up. At this time, Lu Ping said, Disciples' Grey Earthen Jar will probably be able to reopen the Yingtian dojo the next day. At that time, we will first sneak in and collect the spirit mineral lode. At that time, perhaps we can first break the restrictions inside that we can break. After we've reaped enough benefits, we can then meet up with the other sections. With the combined strength of the various sects, we can break the restrictions that our sect can't break alone. Isn't that better? Lu Ping thought that his method would be approved by everyone, but unexpectedly, after he finished speaking, everyone's faces revealed looks of pity. Lu Ping was startled and said, "What's wrong? Could it be that disciples' method won't work?" Jiang Tianlin Laozu smiled and said, "It's not that your method won't work, but because the various sects have agreed to meet up at midnight tonight. At that time, even if the earthen jar can be used again, we won't have the time to open it." Lu Ping said disappointedly, "What if I bring Martial Uncle Xianchen to set up the formation first? Anyway, it's impossible for Laozu from the various sects to find the Yingtian dojo in the first place. Even if they find it, Martial Uncle Xuanju will be able to buy some time. At that time, we can say that because Martial Uncle Xuanju is injured, our sect had no choice but to let Martial Uncle Xuanju summon the disciples who are traveling in the Central Plains to temporarily replace Martial Uncle Xuanju." Jiang Tianlin Laozu stretched out his hand and took out an item. When Lu Ping looked at it, he saw that it was a small and exquisite bell. Seeing the puzzled look on Lu Ping's face, Jiang Tianlin Laozu explained, "This small bell is called the synchronized bell. It's a magic tool from the Shui Yan Pavilion. This magic tool has a wonderful function. When one bell rings, the other bells within a certain range will ring at the same time. At the same time, the cultivators from the various sects can also use this bell to determine the location of the other sections." Jiang Tianlin Laozu put away the bell and said, "At midnight tonight, the cultivators from the various sects will ring the synchronized bell at the same time. This will be the symbol of the various sects gathering. At that time, junior sister Xianchen, as one of the only 3 formation grandmasters in the North Sea, will definitely arouse the vigilance of the various sects if she's not around. At that time, I'm afraid that our sect will become the target of public criticism before we even enter the Yingtian dojo." Lu Ping sighed and said, "I originally thought that after subduing the Yingsu treasure mirror, the spirit stone vein in the Yingtian dojo would already be in our hands. I didn't expect it to be so difficult. Since that's the case, we can only try this method." When everyone heard that Lu Ping actually had a method, their spirits immediately rose. Then, they heard Lu Ping ask Jiang Tianlin Laozu, "Martial uncle, how confident are you that when you release a spiritual pet from the spiritual beast bag, it won't be discovered by the other sect's cultivators?" Jiang Tianlin Laozu was stunned and asked, "What?" At midnight, Lu Ping, along with Jiang Tianlin Laozu and the others, had already arrived at a place several hundred miles away from the rocky cave in the middle of the Ying River. They were afraid that when the synchronized bell rang, the location of the rocky cave would be discovered by everyone. Ring, ring, ring. At midnight, the synchronized bell in Jiang Tianlin Laozu's hand suddenly rang 3 times. Jiang Tianlin Laozu smiled and said, "This should be the Blue Sea sect." This time, they agreed to ring the bell 3 times. Judging from the direction of the bell, the Blue Sea sect should be 300 miles away from here in the northeast, not too far from us. After saying that, Jiang Tianlin Laozu rang the synchronized bell in his hand 7 times in a row, indicating to the various sects that the cultivators Jinling had also arrived. After that, the synchronized bell rang one after another. Each time, the number of times the bell rang was different, representing different sections. Chapter 649. There were only 3 formation grandmasters in the North Sea's cultivation world. Other than Jinling sect's perfected master Xian Chen, who had just become a grandmaster, the other 2 formation grandmasters were Xian Ling sect's perfected master Qian Daofeng, and the other was from Shui Yan Pavilion. All 3 formation grandmasters had come along for this trip to Yingtian Dojo. In addition, there were also 2 formation masters. One was from Hai Yan sect, and the other was from Linggu's sect, which had just joined Songhai sect's camp. Before Songhai sect split up thousands of years ago, its ranking in the North Sea cultivation world was even higher than Jinling, and its foundation was comparable to that of Xianling sect. Unfortunately, after thousands of years of division and internal strife, the Azure Sea sect didn't even have a single formation grandmaster after they reunited. And this time, after Linggu's sect and the Azure Sea sect formed an alliance, they took up the sect's only late-stage core forging cultivator's spot, sending the sect's only formation grandmaster to the Midlands to assist the Azure Sea sect's cultivators in opening the Yingtian Dojo. This time, each sect had sent an early Dharma adept, Laozu, to open up Yingtian Dojo. The difference between each sect was reflected in the number of late core forging adepts who would accompany them. After Celestial Laozu advanced to the late Dharma stage and became the 2nd great adept in the North Sea, Jinling had now become the number 1 sect in the North Sea. In the Battle of Frost Island, Jinling was the biggest beneficiary. This time, there were a total of 4 late core forging adepts who would accompany them on this trip to Yingtian Dojo. Xianling sect, Songhai sect, Hai Yan sect, and Shui Yan Pavilion were each accompanied by 2 late core forging adepts. Originally, Xianling sect wanted to fight for 3 people, but as Jinling's main target, they naturally received strong opposition from Jinling. The other sects were unable to restrict Jinling, so they were more than happy to see Xianling sect weaken so that they could further shorten the distance between the sections. As for the other 4 sects, they were only allowed to send 1 late core forging cultivator to accompany them. This also reflected the current situation of the North Sea's cultivation world after the Blue Sea sect was placed side by side. Other than Jinling, who had an obvious advantage, Xianling sect, Blue Sea sect, Hai Yan sect, and Shui Yan Pavilion were basically in the 2nd tier of the North Sea's cultivation world, while the other 4 sects were in the 3rd tier. These 9 sects were clearly divided into 4 factions. Among them, the Jade Sword faction and the High Brightness faction were led by Jinling. The 3 Dharma adepts, Laozu, and 6 late core forging cultivators were the most tyrannical among the 4 factions. For some unknown reason, the Songhai sect had managed to win over Xianling sect's former ally, the Linggu sect, to join them. However, the leader of the Songhai sect, Donghua Laozu, was a practitioner at the peak of the early Dharma stage. In terms of cultivation, he was the strongest among all the Dharma adepts of the various sections. Moreover, the Songhai sect had also sent Zhang Shi, who was at the peak of the core forging realm and was about to enter the Dharma stage, to accompany them. This person was undoubtedly the strongest among all the late core forging cultivators of the various sections. However, when Zhang Shi saw Lu Ping behind Jiang Tianlin Laozu, the corner of his mouth unconsciously twitched. He, Zhang Shi, could be considered famous in the North Sea's cultivation world. Unexpectedly, the Battle of Frost Island had become the stepping stone for Lu Ping to become famous in the North Sea. After Xian Ling's sect lost the support of the Linggu sect, they only had Fei Yu sect as their staunch ally. However, a starving camel was still bigger than a horse. Just by looking at the formation master that Xian Ling's sect had sent out, one could see that. Compared to Zhenling's spiritual master Xian Chen and Shui Yan Pavilion's green tea enlightened, Zhang Daofeng was undoubtedly the strongest formation master in the North Sea. Although Zhang Daofeng's cultivation level was only at the late core forging realm, his seniority was the same as Xian Ling's sect's first-generation cultivator, Daoxing Laozu. When he became a formation master, spiritual master Xian Chen and green tea enlightened were probably not even formation masters. Shui Yan Pavilion and Hai Yan's sect had always been independent in the North Sea's cultivation world. However, no one dared to underestimate the alliance between these two sections, 2 Dharma adepts and 4 late core forging realm adepts. With the formation master green tea enlightened among them, their strength was no weaker than the Songhai sect. It was just that these two sects had deliberately kept a low profile, which showed the Songhai sect's aggressiveness. After the various sects had gathered at the Songhai sect's location, in order not to attract the attention of the Dharma adepts of the 3 sects, there was not much communication. With the help of the 2 formation masters, the 3 formation masters quickly confirmed the approximate location of the Yingtian dojo. Looking at Jiang Tianlin Laozu's questioning gaze, Lu Ping nodded his head slightly. The location that the formation masters had confirmed was in the direction of the source of the Yingtian dojo. At the source of the Yingtian dojo, the 3 formation masters easily confirmed through their own methods that the destroyed altar was the entrance to the Yingtian dojo. It was just that the various sects did not know how to open the Yingtian dojo, and they did not have the gray clay pot in Lu Ping's hand. Hence, they could only rely on the powers of the 10 Dharma adepts Laozu to tear apart the space where the Yingtian dojo was located and break through the protective formation of the Yingtian dojo. After the 5 formation masters confirmed the location of the Yingtian dojo, they quickly set up a sound and light concealing formation within a radius of a few hundred feet. With this formation as cover, the various Laozus would not be discovered by others due to the earth-shattering formation when they broke through the formation. Everything was ready. Copper Sword Laozu was the first to make a move. A copper sword slashed at the location indicated by the 3 formation masters, and the surface of the copper sword's blade was wrapped in a layer of golden light. The vibrating void was like a piece of skin that had been sliced open, revealing the Yingtian dojo that was covered by the light screen of the formation. After the void was sliced open by the copper sword Laozu, it was about to close up again. Another 4 Laozus gave a loud shout, and 4 chi hands condensed in the sky. After grabbing the 2 parts of the void that had been sliced open, they violently pulled it apart, and the crack in the void that had been about to close up was instantly torn apart and enlarged. Immediately after, the remaining 4 Laozus, including Donghua Laozu's group, along with the 16 late core forging adepts, struck at the light screen of the Yingtian dojo. Rumble. The light screen of the formation shook, and even the surrounding void trembled. Again. Donghua Laozu shouted. Feng Shutao, Jiang Tianlin, and the others struck again. Finally, the light screen of the formation cracked like glass, and its surface cracked. When everyone struck for the 3rd time, the light screen of the formation finally shattered, and a hole about 10 feet in height appeared in front of everyone. Lu Ping controlled the golden scale sword to participate in the attack. Through the hole, he could clearly see that the Yingtian dojo was covered by various restrictions. Seeing the dojo of a large sect standing in front of them, and thinking about the inheritance of the Yingtian dojo inside, even though the Laozus were used to the storms of the cultivation world, they could not contain their excitement at this moment. One by one, they turned into streaks of light and flew into the hole in the void. Perfected Xianchen said in a low voice, "Let's go in quickly as well. This tunnel won't last for long." Zhenling and the rest followed the Laozu's streaks of light and flew into the dojo. The other sect's cultivators also followed suit and flew into the Yingtian dojo. While the Laozus were using up all the energy in the Yingtian dojo, Donghua Laozu, relying on his peak early Dharma stage cultivation, took the lead and entered the dojo. Feng Shutao followed closely behind him. Jiang Tianlin Laozu, however, was the last among the 9 Laozus. Furthermore, when Jiang Tianlin Laozu entered the dojo, he had already reacted half a beat slower than the others. In order to be first, he had to try to overtake the Dharma adepts in front of him from the side of the tunnel. However, he had forgotten that after losing the support of the other Laozus, the entire tunnel began to shrink. When Jiang Tianlin Laozu passed from the side, he almost triggered the spatial fragments on both sides of the tunnel as well as the protective formation of the Yingtian dojo behind the tunnel. For a moment, Jiang Tianlin Laozu, who had always been famous in the cultivation world of the North Sea, was in a sorry state. In order to avoid these restrictions, Jiang Tianlin Laozu had no choice but to move away from the front of the dojo, which was covered by the multicolored restrictions. Thus, he was forced to land in a remote area of the dojo. It was not easy to see the famous Xunling Jiang Tianlin Laozu make a fool of himself in front of everyone. Tongjian Laozu and Sanming Laozu had some understanding of Jiang Tianlin Laozu's abilities. With Jiang Tianlin Laozu's abilities, being the last one to enter the Yingtian dojo had already surprised the two of them. Now that Jiang Tianlin Laozu had made such a mistake, the expressions on their faces became even more strange. Although the Laozus from the other sects did not show their expressions due to the power of Xunling, their gazes still showed that they were openly mocking Jiang Tianlin. However, what the crowd did not see was that when Jiang Tianlin Laozu staggered from the tunnel to the ground, his sleeves inadvertently touched the ground. After tidying himself up a little, Jiang Tianlin Laozu acted as if nothing had happened and slowly walked in the direction where everyone was gathered. Jiang Tianlin Laozu seemed to be unaware of the ridicule in everyone's eyes. At this time, Lu Ping and the others also flew in one after another from outside the space. Jiang Tianlin Laozu's accident just now was not only seen by the Laozu, but also by the core forging stage cultivators of the various sections. Apart from the cultivators of Xunling, the cultivators of the various sects looked at Jiang Tianlin Laozu with strange gazes. Only Zhang Shi looked at Jiang Tianlin Laozu with a puzzled expression. He was also a proud son of heaven like Jiang Tianlin Laozu, so he had a deep understanding of Jiang Tianlin Laozu. He did not think that this was a mistake on Jiang Tianlin Laozu's part. However, Zhang Shi didn't notice anything amiss in the end, and he could only put away the bewilderment in his heart. He stood behind Donghua's ancestor before the corners of his mouth moved, and he seemed to be communicating with Donghua's ancestor. The moment everyone entered the Yingtian dojo, the previously broken space and the protective array of the dojo automatically recovered. Jiang Tianlin Laozu and the other sect's Laozu stood in front of the area covered by the restrictive array, while Lu Ping and the others followed behind him. When Jiang Tianlin Laozu turned around, he exchanged a look with Lu Ping that no one else knew. Jiang Tianlin Laozu nodded slightly, and a trace of joy flashed across Lu Ping's face. Chapter 650. After all, that Jiang Tianlin has only been practicing for a short period of time, and his strength is not that high. Donghua Laozu saw that Jiang Tianlin Laozu did not seem to be doing anything from the beginning to the end, so he sent a message to Zhang Shi, who was walking behind him. Zhang Shi shook his head and said, "Uncle Master, you must not underestimate this person. This person has always been a gentleman, but on the inside, he is definitely a cunning person. There must be a reason for what he did just now." Oh! A strange look flashed across Donghua Laozu's eyes as he said, "Shi, did you see anything?" Zhang Shi shook his head and said, "On the surface, I can't see anything. Perhaps what I saw was fake. However, Uncle Master, don't forget what happened last night. Someone seemed to have stolen something called the Yingshu treasured mirror from the Yingtian sect. In the end, the Dharma adepts of the Yingtian sect, Angshan sect, and Dao Space sect chased after him, but in the end, he managed to escape. During the battle, the shouts of the few of them were very clear. You're saying that Jiang Tianlin was the person who stole the Yingshu treasured mirror from the Yinghe sect yesterday, And the reason why Jiang Tianlin looked so tired just now was because he was severely injured after fighting with 3 Dharma adepts of the same level? A look of shock flashed across Donghua Laozu's face, but he immediately denied it and said, although this is possible, the old man does not believe it. Not to mention that Changhe Laozu of the Yinghe sect is also at the peak of the early Dharma stage, which is comparable to the old man. Just the combined attack of 3 Dharma adepts would not be enough for Jiang Tianlin to break out of the encirclement. Zhang Shi still wanted to say something, but when he saw the confident expression on Donghua Laozu's face, he finally swallowed the words that were about to come out of his mouth. What Zhang Shi didn't know was that although he couldn't guess why Daoist Jiang Tianlin was in such a sorry state just now, he had accidentally guessed that the person who had obtained the abundant void mirror last night was Jiang Tianlin. However, what the two of them did not expect was that it was not as Donghua Laozu had thought, that Jiang Tianlin would definitely be severely injured under the joint attack of the 3, nor was it as Zhang Shi had thought, that Jiang Tianlin Laozu would retreat with light injuries under the joint attack of the 3. Instead, it was Jiang Tianlin Laozu who had fought against 3 Dharma adepts of the same cultivation level as him and had retreated with ease. Donghua Laozu glanced at the crowd before he coughed lightly and said, "The Yingtian dojo is right before our eyes, what do all of you think?" Donghua Laozu looked as if he was asking the crowd a question, but he was actually looking at Jiang Tianlin Laozu, who was standing at the very edge of the crowd. However, Jiang Tianlin Laozu acted as if he hadn't heard Donghua Laozu's words at all, and he continued to straighten out his clothes. Donghua Laozu snorted coldly and was just about to say something when he heard Feng Shidao suddenly say, "What else is there to say? For now, we'll just have to rely on our own strength." Donghua Laozu saw that Jiang Tianlin Laozu was not saying a word, so he had no choice but to say, "Very well, then we'll do as Daoist Feng says. However, let's get the ugly stuff out of the way first. There aren't many areas that are covered by the restrictive spells here, so we'll have to follow an order of priority. If there's a situation where the strong bully the weak due to the speed at which the restrictive spells are broken, we'll have to fight together." Donghua Laozu's words sounded righteous, as if he was taking care of the 4 relatively weaker sections. However, the truth was that among the cultivators from the 9 great sects who had entered the Yingtian dojo, Jinling was the strongest on the surface. Donghua Laozu's words were, in fact, targeted at Jinling. Feng Shidao was already running out of patience. Just now, he had received guidance from his sect's formation grandmaster, so he had already decided on the first target to attack. When he heard Donghua Laozu's words, he hurriedly said, "In that case, let's begin." As soon as he finished speaking, Feng Shidao had already dashed forward, rushing toward an area on the left side of the dojo that was covered by a restrictive spell. 2 streaks of light followed closely behind him. One was Xian Ling's sect's formation grandmaster, Qian Daofeng, and the other was someone familiar to Lu Ping, Xian Ling's sect's peak core forging expert, Lu Shuhan. Lu Ping looked carefully. The direction that Xian Ling's sect was heading toward was the only area in the entire dojo that was covered by the 3 rainbow-colored restrictive spells that Qingjian Laozu had broken in the past. Behind this area was a palace that was covered by 4 restrictive spells. Because the entire dojo was arranged in a concentric pattern, the area with 4 restrictions was surrounded by 3 restrictions. Thus, Xian Ling's sect's first move was to find the only area covered by 4 restrictions in the entire dojo that they could come into contact with. Lu Ping looked toward the streak of light that Xian Ling's sect's formation grandmaster, Qian Daofeng, was leading the way. This must be Qian Daofeng's contribution. As expected of the North Sea's number 1 formation grandmaster, his foresight was indeed extraordinary. At least, the Shuiyan Pavilion's formation grandmaster didn't discover this passage that led directly to the area covered by 4 restrictive spells. However, Lu Ping didn't agree with Xian Ling's sect's choice. Could it be that the area covered by 4 restrictive spells was so easy to break? Just as Xian Ling's sect took the lead and rushed toward the area covered by 4 restrictive spells, the cultivators from the other sects also followed. However, the only area that could reach 4 restrictive spells had already been occupied by Xian Ling's sect, so the other sects could only rush toward the areas covered by 3 or 2 restrictive spells. Dongwu Laozu sneered as he looked in the direction that Feng Shutao and the others were heading. Then, he led Zhang Shi and another disciple to another area. After receiving Lu Ping's warning, the Jinling cultivators had already come up with a countermeasure for the layout of Yingtian Dojo. Taking the lead, Jiang Tianlin Laozu rushed toward an area covered by 3 restrictive spells. At the same time, he drew a line with his fingers, and a pair of sharp claws appeared above the restrictive spells, stabbing into them. Countless restrictive spells lit up, but they couldn't stop the claws from tearing them apart. Jiang Tianlin Laozu pulled with all his might, and a burst of colorful spirit stars splashed out. One of the 3 intersecting rainbow-colored restrictive spells was instantly torn apart. The sound of tearing silk attracted the attention of the other 8 Laozu cultivators. A chill ran down Dongwu Laozu's spine, and the look of disdain in his eyes when he looked at Jiang Tianlin Laozu was no longer there, only endless fear. Jiang Tianlin wasn't injured. This thought flashed through Zhang Shi's mind, but he immediately focused all his energy on breaking the restrictive spells in front of him. Just as Jiang Tianlin Laozu was breaking the 3 restrictive spells on his own, Lu Ping, Xian Chen, Xian Sen, and Xian Su rushed toward an area covered by 2 restrictive spells. Because there were cultivators from the Blue Sea sect here, Lu Ping had no choice but to hide the flowing sword. He took out the golden scale sword and the landslide and worked together with the other 3 cultivators. The 4 late core forging cultivators attacked with all their might, and the 2 rainbow-colored restrictive spells in front of them started to crumble. Perfected Xian Chen's expression changed, and he said, "Not good, there are only 2 more colors left." Perfected Xian Chen was an array master, so he naturally had done a lot of research on the restrictive spells that made up arrays. This was also one of the reasons why the 3 great array masters of the North Sea were gathered here. Apart from confirming the exact location of the Yingtian Dojo, they were here to help the Dharma adepts of their sect break the restrictive spells in the dojo. Although the 4 of them had yet to show their results, Perfected Xian Chen had already predicted the result. However, this rainbow-colored restrictive spell was based on the protective spell of the entire Yingtian Dojo and had an extremely strong regenerative ability. However, if the group could not break the restrictive spell in a short period of time, then by the time they attacked a second time, the rainbow-colored restrictive spell would recover by more than half. In that case, the effect of the group's previous attacks would be greatly reduced, and they would have to spend more time and inner yuan to break the restrictive spell. Now, the cultivators of the various sects were fighting to be the first to attack the various areas that were covered by the restrictive spell so that they could break more restrictive spells in a shorter period of time and obtain more of the inheritance of the Yingtian Dojo. If they could not break the restrictive spell in a single attack, then Jinling's gains in the Yingtian Dojo would definitely be greatly affected. Perfected Xian Chen's reminder caused the expressions of Perfected Xian Su and Perfected Xian Sen to change. This was because the 3 of them had attacked with all their might just now, and it was impossible for them to attack a second time in such a short period of time. Seeing that the restrictive spell, which had only 2 colors left, was glowing again and was about to recover, and Jinling's previous plan was about to be affected, a purple thunderbolt suddenly fell from the sky. With a loud crackling sound, under the surprised gazes of Perfected Xian Chen and the others, the 2 remaining colors were instantly destroyed. When everyone turned to look, Lu Ping had already stepped into the broken restrictive spell and collected the 2 paper ancient books, 3 jade scrolls, and 2 jade boxes. Without bothering to check what the treasures were, Lu Ping turned to look at the other area covered by 2 restrictive spells. When he raised his head, he saw that Perfected Xian Chen and the others were looking at him in surprise. Perfected Xian Su asked in surprise, "You can actually fire out 3 attacks that are not inferior to the great magic powers?" At that moment, the cultivators from the Soaring Feathers sect broke the 2 restrictive spells. Lu Ping said anxiously, "Martial uncles, now is not the time to talk about this. We need to speed up." Perfected Xian Chen immediately reacted and looked towards Jiang Tianlin and Laozu's side. He saw Jiang Tianlin and Laozu taking a heavy step. In an instant, the restrictive spell, which only had 3 colors left, was completely destroyed by Jiang Tianlin and Laozu's attacks. A beam of light took advantage of the moment when Jiang Tianlin and Laozu broke the restrictive spell to escape. A spirit-nurturing grade magic treasure. Only spirit-nurturing grade magic treasures would escape on their own in an attempt to escape the fate of being controlled by others. However, before this beam of light could escape from the broken restrictive spell, a large hand made of vital energy had already grabbed it tightly. After temporarily suppressing the light, Jiang Tianlin and Laozu collected a few treasures from the restrictive spell. Lu Ping and the others hurried over to meet up with Jiang Tianlin and Laozu. Next, Jinling and the others' target was the four-colored restrictive spell behind the three-colored restrictive spell that Jiang Tianlin and Laozu had broken. At that moment, there was another loud rumble. After Jinling and Jiang Tianlin and Laozu broke a three-colored restrictive spell, Songhai sect's Donghua Laozu and Zhang Shi, as well as another late-stage core forging cultivator from their sect, finally broke a three-colored restrictive spell. However, at that moment, Donghua Laozu and Zhang Shi did not have the slightest hint of joy on their faces. Chapter 651. Songhai sect's Donghua Laozu was at the peak of the early Dharma stage. He was considered the strongest among the 9 Laozus who had infiltrated the North Sea this time. When he joined forces with his sect's second-generation disciple, Zhang Shi, who was at the peak of the core forging stage, and another 9th-stage core forging cultivator to attack an area covered by a three-colored restriction formation, the result was even longer than Jinling's Jiang Laozu. What did this mean? If the rainbow restrictions in the Yingtian dojo were not unequal in strength, it meant that Jiang Laozu's strength alone was probably stronger than Donghua Laozu and Zhang Shi. How could this not make Donghua Laozu's face darken? Even Zhang Shi's expression was ugly. In fact, not only that Songhai sect, but the other sects were also deeply shocked by Jiang Laozu's strength. Almost every Laozu's face flashed with a trace of fear. In the first round, Jinling broke through the two-colored restriction formation and 2 areas covered by the three-colored restriction formation. That Songhai sect only obtained the inheritance of the three-colored restriction formation, while the Xianling sect was still fighting the four-colored restriction formation. Among the other sects, the Feiyu sect and Linggu sect chose the wrong area at the first moment. Their Dharma stage cultivators attacked the two-colored restriction formation, wasting their true yuan and dermic powers. By the time they reacted, Jinling and Songhai sect had already started to break through the four-colored restriction formation, and they had no choice but to break through the three-colored restriction formation in order to open a path to the four-colored restriction formation. Although the Hai Yen sect and Shui Yen pavilion cultivators did not make any mistakes in their choices, their strength was inferior to the Songhai sect. At this time, they still had half a restriction formation left. Although the Jade Sword faction and Chongming faction had received Jinling's instructions and rushed directly to the area where the three-colored prohibition formation was located, the strength of the two factions was slightly inferior. Even though Tong Jian Laozu was a sword cultivator and his ability to destroy prohibition formations was stronger than Sanming Laozu, he could only break 2 of the 7-colored prohibition formations. After reuniting with Lu Ping and the other 3, Jinling's group and Songhai sect's group charged towards the 4-colored restriction formations. Meanwhile, with the help of Qian Daofeng, Xianling sect's formation grandmaster, Feng Shutao and Lu Shuheng had already destroyed 2 of the weakened 4-colored restriction formations. Azure Sea sect's Donghua Laozu's team of 3 began bombarding the area covered by the 4-colored restrictive arrays. Due to the increase in the number of restrictive arrays, the cultivators from the various sects no longer had the strength to break the restrictive arrays in one fell swoop. All they could do was to slowly weaken the 4-colored restrictive arrays by launching attacks that were greater than the rate at which the restrictive arrays could recover. Due to that, they had to spend much more time than before. In this way, Azure Sea sect's disadvantage of not having a formation grandmaster or even a formation master was obvious. Unlike Azure Sea sect, Jinling did not attack the 4-colored restrictive arrays immediately. Due to Lu Ping, perfected Xian Chen was already prepared for the restrictive arrays in the dojo. He set up a few formation tools on the periphery of the 4-colored restrictive arrays. After perfected Xian Chen activated them, a small formation suddenly took shape. Then, like a part of the protective formation of the entire Yingtian dojo, the light screen it formed began to slowly seep into the light screen formed by the 4-colored restrictive arrays. After the light screen of the formation perfected, Xian Chen set up completely merged with the light screen of the restrictive arrays. The 7 colored lights that were swimming around the surface of the 4 restrictive arrays began to gradually weaken. 2 rays of colorful lights disappeared from each of the 4 restrictive arrays. Now! Perfected Xian Chen said anxiously, this formation can only last for a moment. As soon as spiritual master Xian Chen's voice fell, Patriarch Jiang Tianlin took the initiative to attack. He opened his hands and then suddenly clasped them inwards. His wide sleeves rolled up the vitality that filled the sky, forming a pair of huge wings in the sky. The wings suddenly flapped towards the 4-colored restriction, and the feathers at the front scraped against the restriction light screen, causing the sky to be filled with spiritual starlight. One of the 4 remaining 5-colored restrictive arrays was destroyed in an instant. Before the remaining 3 restrictions could recover, Lu Ping's golden scale sword, landslide, and a purple thunderbolt arrived one after another. They struck the light screen continuously, destroying 2 of the 5-colored lights in one of the restrictive arrays. Immediately after, perfected Xian Chen and perfected Xian Su worked together to destroy the remaining 3. This way, other than perfected Xian Chen, who was unable to attack because he was controlling the formation, Jinling and the other 4 worked together to destroy half of the restrictive arrays. However, just as everyone was preparing to attack a second time, the remaining 2 incomplete restrictive arrays were replenished by the protective formation and began to recover rapidly. Even though perfected Xian Chen tried his best to stop them, when Lu Ping and the others attacked a second time, the restrictive array once again recovered a 5-colored restrictive array. Jiang Tianlin, Laozu, and the others attacked with all their might. Out of the 3 5-colored restrictive arrays, 2 of them were destroyed. At this moment, the restrictive array that Xian Ling's sect was attacking made a cracking sound. LV Shudao pressed his hands in the air and suppressed the 2 rays of light again. Then, LV Shuheng took something out of it. After collecting all the treasures in the restrictive array, Xian Ling's sect unexpectedly did not continue to attack the next area covered by the 5-colored restrictive array. Instead, they turned around and attacked the area covered by the 4-colored restrictive array. Right after Xian Ling's sect launched their attack, an angry voice rang out. Xian Ling's sect, don't go too far. Linggu's sect had just broken through a 3-colored area, and originally wanted to break through the 4-colored area after this area. Unexpectedly, Xian Ling's sect, which was next to it, beat them to it. The Dharma adept of Linggu's sect was naturally furious. LV Shudao protected perfected Qian Daofeng, who was setting up a formation to weaken the restrictive array. He sneered at Linggu's sect's cultivators and said, "Didn't we say earlier that the restrictive array depends on who comes first? You can't bully the weak." Xian Ling's sect was the first to see this restrictive array. "Don't tell me that your sect is not going to follow the order we said earlier." "You!" Linggu's sect's Dharma adept pointed at LV Shudao angrily. Xian Ling's sect's power was far above Linggu's sect's. In addition, Linggu's sect had previously joined the Songhai sect. Xian Ling's sect and Linggu's sect could be said to have a new and old grudge. This time, Xian Ling's sect's actions could be said to be deliberately targeting Linggu's sect. However, no matter what, Xian Ling's sect had the advantage now. Even the Songhai sect could not help them now. The Linggu sect's Dharma adept's half-closed eyes flashed coldly, but in the end, he still did not dare to provoke Xian Ling's sect. He turned around and led another late core forging adept, who was also the only formation master that Linggu's sect had sent to join the Songhai sect. They walked in the direction of the Songhai sect. In Yingtian Dojo, there were originally only 12 two-colored restrictive arrays. Among them, Qingjian Laozu and Lu Ping had already broken 6. Previously, Lu Ping and the Jinling late core forging adepts had worked together to break 1. Linggu's sect and Fei Yu's sect had each broken 1. After that, all the sects had put all their energy into breaking 3-colored restrictive arrays. The remaining 3 two-colored restrictive arrays were temporarily thrown to the back of their minds. There were only 8 3-colored restrictive arrays left. Xian Ling's sect headed straight for the 4-colored restrictive arrays. The remaining 8 sects each occupied a 3-colored restrictive array. After Zhenling's sect, Azure Sea sect, Ocean Flame sect, and Water Mist Pavilion had broken through the three-colored restriction, they began to attack the four-colored restriction area. Jade Sword sect and High Brightness sect had received Zhenling's sect's warning beforehand, so they followed closely behind and broke through the three-colored restriction area. However, they did not compete with the other sects for the four-colored restriction area. Instead, they turned around and headed towards the two-colored restriction area, each taking one restriction area. As for Soaring Feather sect, who had broken through the three-colored restriction area before Lingu's sect, they had no choice but to break through the last two-colored restriction area. This was also the reason why Lingu's sect had no choice but to meet up with Azure Sea sect first. There were only 6 four-colored restrictive arrays in the dojo. Lingu's sect's four-colored restrictive array was occupied by Xianling's sect. At this time, Zhenling's group made their third move. Following closely after Xianling's sect, they also broke a four-colored restrictive array. The Songhai sect, the Hai Yen sect, and the Shui Yen Pavilion also used their sect strength to occupy a four-colored restrictive array. Just as Xianling's sect occupied the second four-colored restrictive array, Zhenling also broke the four-colored restrictive array. Jiang Tianlin Laozu took the lead. When he saw the 3 rows of 12 boxes placed in the restrictive array, his eyes lit up. With a wave of his sleeve, he swept all the boxes inside. Lu Ping asked curiously, "Uncle Master, what are these 12 boxes? It seems like Uncle Master knows about them." Jiang Tianlin Laozu casually made a hand seal and set up a sound barrier around them. He whispered to Lu Ping and the rest, "This box is called the Spirit Restriction Box. It's a type of Dharma artifact used to restrict heaven and earth spiritual objects and preserve their spirituality. These 3 rows of boxes represent the 3 grades of the spiritual objects in the box. The 6 yellow boxes in the bottom row should contain high-grade earth-level spiritual objects. The 4 blue boxes in the middle should contain low-grade heaven-level spiritual objects. As for the 2 purple boxes at the top, they are very likely to contain mid-grade heaven-level spiritual objects." Jiang Tianlin Laozu looked at the shocked expressions of Lu Ping and the rest. He said, "This Yingtian temple is indeed a famous large sect in the Middle Plains thousands of years ago. The harvest this time is indeed rich. Not to mention the 6 high-grade earth-level spiritual objects, just the 6 mid-grade heaven-level spiritual objects alone are very likely to mean 3 to 4 Dharma adepts for our sect." At this time, the 6 four-colored restriction areas had their own masters. Zhenling seemed to be prepared and headed straight for the 5-colored restriction area. Feng Shutao looked coldly at Zhenling and the rest. He heard perfected Qian Daofeng's mocking voice. He said, "Zhenling can't break through the 4-colored restriction area in one go. They have almost no chance of breaking through the 5-colored restriction area." Even though Jiang Tianlin's strength far exceeds everyone's expectations, it's a fool's dream to think that he can break through the 5-colored restriction area. There were only 4 5-colored restriction areas. After the Blue Sea sect met up with the 2 from the Lingu sect, the 2 sects discussed for a while and joined forces to head towards a 5-colored restriction area. Then, the Haiyan sect and the Shuiyan Pavilion, who had broken through the 4-colored restriction area, also joined forces to occupy a 5-colored restriction area. At this time, the Yujin sect and Chongming sect, who had already broken through 2 3-colored restriction areas and 3 2-colored restriction areas, suddenly joined forces and occupied the remaining 5-colored restriction area. Chapter 652. Feng Shutao was currently very flustered. Earlier, Reverend Shen Daofeng had confidently said that it was impossible for the sects to break through the 5-colored forbidden zones. He had thought that it was impossible for the sects to break through the 5-colored forbidden zones. That was why he had occupied the remaining 4-colored forbidden zone after breaking through the first 4-colored forbidden zone. Because of this, Feng Shutao was rather pleased with himself. However, apart from Zhenling, who occupied a 5-colored forbidden zone by himself, the other sects had joined forces and occupied a 5-colored forbidden zone first. Feng Shutao was rather uncertain. Feng Shutao looked at Reverend Qian Daofeng worriedly and said, "Uncle Master, Is Jinling and the Azure Sea sect really unable to break through the five-colored Forbidden Zone? There's also the Azure Sea sect and the Mistwater Pavilion. If they join forces and have the help of a Formation Grandmaster, their strength will probably surpass that of Jinling alone. Qian Daofeng looked at Reverend Xianchen and the Formation Grandmaster of the Mistwater Pavilion who were working in an orderly manner in the distance. He was rather uncertain, and his previously confident tone gradually changed. According to the current strength of the sects, unless they have some trump cards that they haven't used yet, they probably won't be able to break through the restriction. Feng Shutao's expression changed, and he said, "Uncle Master, have you forgotten about the restriction-breaking talismans? Teacher gave me 3 5-colored restriction-breaking talismans when we came to the Central Plains this time. Since our sect has them, there's no guarantee that the other sects don't have them too. If they use them now, won't our sect fall behind the others?" Feng Shutao's expression changed, and he shook his head. "That's impossible. Even if the sects have treasures like the restriction-breaking talismans, they definitely won't waste them on the 5th Forbidden Zone. Otherwise, there are still 3 6-colored Forbidden Zones and a 7-colored Central Palace. If they don't have the help of the restriction-breaking talismans, then the sects will really enter the treasure mountain and return empty-handed." Feng Shutao's expression relaxed slightly, but he still felt uneasy for some reason. He kept feeling that there was something he had not thought of. Compared to the 4-colored restriction, the 5-colored restriction was several times more powerful. Daoist Master Xianchen had spent a lot of time just setting up the formation, and after activating the formation, each of the 5-colored restriction had only been weakened by one of the restrictions. However, after perfected Xianchen activated the formation, the people from Jinling did not rush to attack. Under the surprised gazes of the various sects, a 5-colored talisman suddenly appeared in Laozu's hand. It suddenly turned into a 5-colored light and swept towards the light screen in front of him. The light barrier suddenly dimmed. Before the cultivators could figure out why Jinling had used such a precious treasure like the 5-colored restriction-breaking talisman so early, another 5-colored ball of light appeared in Laozu's hand. Another 5-colored restriction-breaking talisman. Had Jinling gone crazy? However, when the cultivators from the North Sea saw Jiang Tianlin Laozu's calm expression, they really did not know what Jinling was planning. Could it be that Jinling still had a secret restriction-breaking treasure? This thought flashed through the minds of many cultivators, especially Laozu's from the various sections. After 2 more 5-colored restriction-breaking talismans, the 5-colored light barrier was once again destroyed. Jiang Tianlin Laozu suddenly shouted, "Now's the time. Everyone, use all your strength to break this light barrier." After saying that, Patriarch Jiang Tianlin patted his chest, and a clear cry soared into the sky. A huge woodluan materialized behind Patriarch Jiang Tianlin, flapped its wings and flew up into the sky. At the same time, Patriarch Jiang Tianlin waved his hands, and 108 green leaves fluttered in the air. The wooden luan flapped its wings, and the leaves were swept up by a gust of wind. The feathers on the wooden luan's wings suddenly turned from illusory to corporeal. This was the first time Lu Ping had seen Jiang Tianlin Laozu use his own dharma and summon 108 magic treasure-like leaves. The wood phoenix arrived above the light barrier and suddenly flapped its wings. 108 feathers shot out from its wings and smashed into the light barrier like 108 sharp blades. Each of the 5 restrictions only had 4 colors left. With Jiang Tianlin Laozu's full power, 2 of the restrictions' 8 colors were extinguished. Following closely after Jiang Tianlin Laozu, Lu Ping used the golden scale sword, Mountain Crumble, and the 7 treasure Thunder Gourd to summon a powerful lightning spell. In an instant, Lu Ping's momentum was almost on par with Songhai Sect's enlightened master Zhang Shi, who was attacking another restriction. Even the other sect's great ancestors glanced at Lu Ping's direction. However, Jiang Tianlin Laozu's attention was not on the momentum Lu Ping had created. Instead, it was on a colorful restriction that had suddenly disappeared without a trace. His gaze wandered as though he had noticed something. As Lu Ping retrieved all the magic treasures he had unleashed and prepared to attack with all his might, he happened to see Jiang Tianlin Laozu looking at his sleeve. Lu Ping's brows jumped. Ever since the invisible sword was upgraded to a spiritual magic treasure and Lu Ping's cultivation base had improved greatly, there were almost no cultivators who could see the invisible sword's movements from afar. Due to that, Lu Ping gained a deeper understanding of Jiang Tianlin Laozu's strength. Sage Xian Su and Sage Xian Sen's attacks followed closely behind. Unfortunately, the two of them did not manage to break the remaining two restrictions. The two remaining restrictions quickly recovered. When Jiang Tianlin Laozu attacked for the second time, the two restrictions almost instantly recovered into two restrictions. Compared to the first attack, Jiang Tianlin Laozu's second attack was slightly weaker. However, after his attack, the three remaining restrictions were destroyed by Lu Ping's golden scale sword and landslide. The moment Lu Ping attacked, Jiang Tianlin Laozu had already taken a step toward the restriction light curtain. The moment Lu Ping broke the light curtain, Jiang Tianlin Laozu's figure happened to enter the area where the restriction was previously located. Jiang Tianlin's wide sleeves suddenly gathered in the middle, and 108 leaves suddenly formed a green dome in the sky above the area. The three rays of light attacked from inside, but they were blocked by the dome. Lu Ping, Sage Xian Sen, and Sage Xian Su each went forward to suppress one of the rays of light. Jiang Tianlin Laozu waved his sleeves, and a small space door appeared in front of every item in the restriction. Then, a suction force came from the door, sucking in the 3 jade boxes, 3 purple wooden boxes, 6 jade slips, and 4 thick books into the door. Jiang Tianlin Laozu looked at Lu Ping and the other two, then pointed in the direction of Sage Xian Su. Sage Xian Su, who was struggling to suppress one of the rays of light, felt his hand lighten. When he turned his head to look, the ray of light was already in the palm of Jiang Tianlin Laozu's giant hand made of energy. Then, Jiang Tianlin Laozu restrained the rays of light suppressed by Sage Xian Sen and Lu Ping. At this moment, the sound of the restriction light curtain shattering could be heard again. With the help of the formation Grandmaster of Shuiyan Pavilion and Haiyan Sect, Laozu had already broken the restriction light curtain before Azure Sea Sect. Jiang Tianlin Laozu looked at Azure Sea Sect and Linggu Sect, who were doing their best to attack the restriction, and observed the progress of the two sections. Jiang Tianlin Laozu's mouth revealed a faint smirk, then he said, "Support Jade Sword Sect and Chongming Sect." Jiang Tianlin Laozu took the lead and rushed towards the restriction that Sanming Laozu and Tongjian Laozu were attacking. Lu Ping and the others followed closely behind. Tongjian Laozu and Sanming Laozu seemed to already know that Jinling would come to help. When Jinling and the others flew over, they tacitly formed an attack formation with Jinling. Previously, under the joint attack of the two sects, the number of rainbow restrictions in this area had been suppressed to around 3 rainbow restrictions. Jiang Tianlin Laozu came with the power of the 3 Laozus and 6 late-stage core forging realm masters working together to destroy 2 of the remaining 3 complete 7-colored restrictions. Just as the last 7-colored restriction was restored to 2, the joint attack of the 3 sects came again. The area covered by the 5-colored restriction was finally broken. Jiang Tianlin Laozu's divine sense swept over and found that there were 16 kinds of treasures behind the restriction. Jiang Tianlin Laozu casually put away 4 kinds of treasures, then looked at Tongjian and Sanming Laozu and said with a smile, "Seniors, according to the agreement, the remaining treasures will be divided equally between the 2 sections." Sanming Laozu's face was filled with joy, but he didn't make a move. Tongjian Laozu hesitated for a moment and said, "How can this be? Previously, it was said that the 3 sects will divide the treasures equally. Your sect's strength is originally above ours. Our 2 sects have already gained an advantage by sharing the treasures in this restriction with Jinling." Jiang Tianlin Laozu waved his hand and said, "Senior Tongjian, you don't need to worry too much. This restriction was first attacked by the 2 sections I, Jinling, am only helping in the middle. 4 treasures are enough. Moreover, the 3 sects can't divide the 16 treasures equally. I, Jinling, will give up 1 treasure, and Jade Sword Sect and High Brightness Sect will each take 6. Sanming Laozu and Tongjian Laozu's eyes were filled with gratitude. They cupped their hands towards Jiang Tianlin Laozu and said, "Your sect is righteous. We will definitely report the details of today's matter to our sect. Jiang Tianlin Laozu smiled and said, now isn't the time to talk about this. We should quickly occupy a 6-colored restriction area. The 6-colored restriction area will require the cooperation of our 3 sections. The 3 ancestors leaped into the air and occupied the last 6-colored restriction zone before the Azure Sea sect and Lingu sect. Donghua ancestor glanced at the first 6-colored restriction zone that had been jointly occupied by the Water Mist Pavilion and the Ocean Flame sect. Then, he looked at the second 6-colored restriction zone that had been occupied by the overjoyed Feng Shudao and the already idle Soaring Feather sect, while Zhenling sect had yet to occupy it. Finally, he looked at the 3 sects that had assisted the Jade Sword sect and High Brightness sect in breaking the 5-colored restriction zone, but had only occupied the last 6-colored restriction zone a few seconds before the Azure Sea sect and Lingu sect. Zhang Shi Laozu's face was gloomy. Donghua Laozu finally understood. He looked at Jiang Tianlin Laozu and said with a cold smile, good, Zhenling is really good at scheming. Chapter 653. The 3 6-colored restriction zones were occupied by Shui Yen sect and Hai Yen sect, Xianling sect and Feiyu sect, and Zhenling sect and Jade Sword sect and Chongming sect respectively. As for Songhai sect and Lingu sect, they were seized by Jiang Tianlin and Laozu's group at the last moment, as if they had grasped the timing. This caused the 2 sects to be completely squeezed out of the competition for the 3 6-colored restriction zones. Zhang Shi Laozu's face was gloomy. Donghua Laozu finally understood at this moment. He looked at Jiang Tianlin and Laozu and said with a cold smile, good, Zhenling is really good at scheming. Donghua Laozu's words made the Laozu's hearts skip a beat. They thought about Zhenling's performance after entering Yingtian Dojo, and they suddenly realized that Zhenling really seemed to know everything about Yingtian Dojo like the back of his hand. After Zhenling entered Yingtian Dojo, he first split up the Transcendent Stage and Core Forging Stage cultivators to attack a 2-colored restriction zone and a 3-colored restriction zone respectively. He broke through the restriction zones almost at the same time, as if he had already calculated the defensive strength of each restriction zone. When they attacked the 4-colored restriction zone, Zhenling led his allies, Jade Sword sect and Chongming sect, attack the remaining 2-colored restriction zones first. At that time, although Feiyu sect was lucky enough to get a 2-colored restriction zone, Songhai sect's ally, Lingu sect, didn't get anything. When it came to attacking the 5-colored restriction zone, Zhenling took advantage of Xianling sect's second 4-colored restriction zone and let Jade Sword sect and Chongming sect attack the last 5-colored restriction zone before Xianling sect. This left Xianling sect and their ally, Feiyu sect, with no room to interfere. However, Zhenling's plan wasn't just that. After attacking the 5-colored restriction zone, Zhenling turned a blind eye to the exposed 6-colored restriction zone and turned to help Jade Sword sect and Chongming sect to attack the 5-colored restriction zone, giving Xianling sect and Feiyu sect the opportunity to occupy the 6-colored restriction zone. Zhenling sect, on the other hand, gathered the strength of the 3 sects and caught up from behind, taking over the final forbidden zone of the 6-colored paths before the Azure Sea sect and Lingu sect. This time, however, they had completely eliminated the Azure Sea sect and Lingu sect from the ranks of the contending for the forbidden zone of the 6-colored paths. From the beginning to the end, Xianling sect and Songhai sect, which were ranked 2nd and 3rd in the North Sea cultivation world, as well as their allies, had all suffered from Zhenling's schemes. Compared to Zhenling, their gains were naturally far inferior. On the contrary, Shui Yen Pavilion and Hai Yen sect had a smooth journey and didn't suffer too many setbacks. Hearing Donghua Laozu's question, Jiang Tianlin smiled faintly and said, Tianlin doesn't dare to agree with Mr. Donghua's words. Fellow Daoist Feng was the first to break through the 4-colored restriction zone, but he didn't choose the 5-colored restriction zone. Instead, he continued to attack the 4-colored restriction zone. This has nothing to do with my sect. As for why your sect didn't occupy the 6-colored restriction zone, you can only blame your sect's lack of strength. After all, our sect was the first to break through the 5-colored restriction zone, but we didn't immediately occupy the 6-colored restriction zone. Under such circumstances, your sect still couldn't occupy the six-colored restriction zone before us. You can only blame your sect's lack of strength. Who else could you blame? Dongguo Laozu was rendered speechless, while the other Laozu suddenly came to a realization. It was just as Jiang Tianlin Laozu had said, Jinling hadn't schemed against the other sect's cultivators. What Jinling had shown from the beginning was their luck, strength, and familiarity with these restrictions. That's right, familiarity. Jinling seemed to be far too familiar with Yingtian Dojo. It was as if Jinling had already accurately predicted the layout and strength of the restrictions in Yingtian Dojo. That was why he was able to arrive before the Azure Sea sect at the last moment. Could it be that Jinling had really come to this Yingtian Dojo before? Almost all the Dharma projections Laozu had the same thought, but they immediately dispelled it. If Jinling had really entered the Yingtian Dojo, there wouldn't have been so many restrictions left for the cultivators from the various sects in the North Sea. Perhaps Jinling had obtained an ancient record that described the interior of Yingtian Dojo. However, this record didn't seem to have recorded the exact location of Yingtian Dojo, which was why Jinling hadn't been able to find the location first. In the blink of an eye, the various Laozu's thoughts were more or less the same. They had once again found a reason for Jinling to rejoice, but at the same time, it was a pity. They were glad that Jinling hadn't found the Yingtian Dojo in advance, but it was a pity that Jinling seemed to be able to reap the biggest reward among the various sects this time. After arriving at the area of the six-colored restrictions, the various sects all slowed down the pace of their attacks. Compared to the five-colored restrictions, the defensive power of the six-colored restrictions had once again increased qualitatively. Even a powerful formation like Jinling's, which consisted of 3 early Dharma adepts and 6 late core forging adepts, was unable to break through the light curtain of the restrictions in a short period of time. In the area covered by the 3 six-colored restrictions were 3 small palaces that surrounded and protected the central palace. Sage Jiang Tianlin took advantage of the time when Sage Xianqin was setting up the weakening formation to use some kind of remarkable power to investigate the palaces that were covered by the restrictions. He then said to Tong Jian Laozu and Sanming Laozu, the palaces inside should be a large-scale space instrument. After breaking through the restrictions, the palace instrument will belong to our sect, and the treasures in the palaces will be divided equally among the 3 sections. What do the two of you think? Tong Jian Laozu laughed heartily and said, your sect has contributed the most. We have nothing to say. Sanming Laozu also nodded and said, Brother Tong Jian is right. At this time, when the Songhai sect and Linggu sect saw that they had no hope of interfering with the 6-colored restrictions, they could only angrily and helplessly investigate the space around the training hall. After the various sects entered the training hall, almost everyone's attention had been attracted by the area covered by the light curtain of the restrictions. They did not pay much attention to the empty space around the training hall. At this time, the Songhai sect and Linggu sect had no choice but to investigate the surroundings, hoping to pick up the loot and make up for their own losses. Jiang Tianlin Laozu saw that the 2 sects were investigating the surroundings and knew that the fact that there was a medium-sized spirit mine in the training hall could not be hidden from the cultivators of the 2 sections. Thus, he gave Lu Ping a look. Lu Ping already knew what the 6 Daos forbidden art was going to do. He stomped on the light barrier 3 times in a row, as if he wanted to test how strong the barrier's defense was. 3 rays of bluish-purple light fell down the light curtain, causing the ground near the light curtain to tremble. Muffled thumping sounds traveled all the way into the ground. At this time, from the edge of the dojo, the sturdy late-stage core forging cultivator from the Azure Sea sect suddenly cried out with great joy. The various sects all looked over. However, at this time, the various sects had already reached the final stage of their preparations for the 6-colored restriction. As for the fortunes of the Azure Sea sect and Linggu sect, the various sects could not be bothered to seriously investigate it. Only the people of Jinling's sect looked in the direction of the exclamation. They knew that the small spirit mine had been discovered by the Songhai sect and Linggu sect. However, so what if they discovered it? Could the Songhai sect take away this spirit mine? The prelude to breaking through the 6-colored forbidden area had turned into a show for the 3 great formation masters of the North Sea. The three of them set up formation tools all around the forbidden area. Now that they had ample time, the formations that the three formation masters had set up were undoubtedly much more intricate and complicated. It was likely that their formations were also much more powerful than before. Among the three formation masters, the formation master of the Shuiyan Pavilion had the cooperation of a formation master from the Haiyan sect. Thus, the speed at which he set up the formation was the fastest among the three. As for Sage Qian Daofeng of Xianling sect, he was worthy of being the oldest formation master in the North Sea cultivation world. With the power of one person, the speed at which he set up the formation was second only to the formation master of the Shuiyan Pavilion. Sage Xianchen was the slowest among the three. However, at this time, the speed at which he set up the formation did not matter much to the various sects' gains in the Yingtian training hall. Looking at the last central palace that was covered by the 7 colored restrictions, it was not something that 2 or 3 early Dharma adepts could break through together. The 7 colored restrictions were known as the most powerful protective restrictions in the cultivation world. Of course, the prerequisite was that the restrictions had to be controlled by someone. Jiang Tianlin Laozu coughed and said to Tongjian Laozu and Sanming Laozu, "Everyone, it's time to show everyone what you have." With that, he took out the last 5 colored restriction breaking talisman from his storage artifact. This time, Tian Shui Laozu had given Sage Xuanju a total of 3 5-colored restriction-breaking talismans. After Sage Xuanju had been injured and replaced by Lu Ping, he had given these 3 talismans to Jiang Tianlin Laozu. Jiang Tianlin Laozu had used up 2 of the talismans in one go when he was breaking through the 5-colored restriction area. As a result, Jinling's sect had become the only sect in the North Sea to have a complete 5-colored restriction area. Tongjian Laozu was a straightforward person. Seeing that Jian Tianlin Laozu had taken out the restriction-breaking talisman, he also took out his own restriction-breaking talisman. Sanming Laozu hesitated for a moment and said, "Martial nephew Tianlin, if we use the restriction-breaking talisman now, what should we do with the last central palace?" Jiang Tianlin Laozu smiled and said, "I'm afraid you've forgotten that the restriction-breaking talisman can only be broken through by brute force. Only the 7-colored restriction-breaking talisman can be effective." Sanming Laozu slapped his forehead in annoyance and said, "Yes, yes. If we don't use it now, I'm afraid this restriction-breaking talisman will be useless in the dojo." At this time, the various sects finally began to show their respective treasures. Xianling sect's Feng Shutao took out a 3-foot 5-colored restriction-breaking talisman, while Feiyu sect took out a magic artifact that seemed to be useless in the eyes of the cultivators present. However, this magic artifact seemed to be effective in breaking through restrictions, so it was recognized by Feng Shutao. Haiyan sect and Shuiyan Pavilion each had 2 5-colored restriction-breaking talismans. Their total number even exceeded that of Jinling sect and the other 2 sections. However, these 3 sects had 3 transcendents, Laozu. When breaking through restrictions by brute force, their overall strength far exceeded that of Haiyan sect and Shuiyan Pavilion. Chapter 654. After setting up the formation, perfected Xuanzhen's expression was solemn. He stood there for a long time without saying a word, as if he was thinking about something. In the other 2 areas, whether it was Qian Daofeng or the Shuiyan Pavilion's formation grandmaster and master-level assistants, their progress in setting up the formation was above perfected Xuanzhen's. However, for some reason, there were no sounds of violent breaking of the formation in these 2 areas. Jiang Tianlin Laozu saw perfected Xianchen frowning as if calculating something, so he asked, "Junior sister, is there something wrong?" Perfected Xianchen heaved a long sigh of relief. "Senior brother, I'm afraid we underestimated the difficulty of protecting the 6-colored forbidden zone. According to the estimation of the light screen when we set up the formation, I'm afraid it will be very difficult for us to break this light screen." Tongjian Laozu panicked and said, "How is that possible? There are 3 Dharma laws Laozu here. If we can't break it, then the other 2 areas can't be broken either." Sanming Laozu saw that perfected Xianchen was a little unhappy and hurriedly said, "Brother Tongjian, disciple Xianchen is a formation grandmaster. Since she said it can't be broken, then it really can't be broken. Haven't you noticed that the other two areas haven't started breaking the restrictions yet? Tong Jian Laozu chuckled. He was an impatient person, and things came and went quickly. Disciple Xianchen, the old man spoke too quickly. Don't blame him. Perfected Xianchen nodded slightly. She was a formation grandmaster, and her status in the North Sea was not lower than that of ordinary Dharma laws adepts. She had her own way of doing things. After thinking for a while, Perfected Xianchen continued, this formation is considered to be doing its best. I'm confident that I won't lose to the two from Xian Ling's sect and Shuiyan Pavilion, but at most, each colored restriction will weaken one restriction. Although the 3 5-colored restriction breaking talismans have some effect, it won't do much against the 6-colored restriction. At most, 1 or 2 restrictions will be destroyed. However, the 6-colored restriction's recovery ability far exceeds the 5-colored restrictions. I've calculated that with our combined power, I'm afraid we'll just barely be able to match the weakened restriction's recovery ability. Bronze Sword Laozu said with some disappointment, what should we do? Sanming Laozu, on the other hand, laughed somewhat self-deprecatingly and said, at least the other two places might not be able to break the Jinji. It's just that this way, the sects will definitely have to form alliances again. After a round of haggling, who knows how the disputes will turn out. Jiang Tianlin and Laozu looked at the two groups of people who were discussing in the distance. Their eyes flickered, and no one knew what they were thinking. Although Jiang Tianlin Laozu's seniority was lower than Tong Jian Laozu and San Laozu, whether it was cultivation or Jinling behind Jiang Tianlin Laozu, Jiang Tianlin Laozu was the leader. San Laozu saw that Jiang Tianlin was silent for a long time, so he asked, Martial Nephew Tianlin, do you have any ideas? Jiang Tianlin Laozu smiled slightly and said, I'm afraid that Martial Uncle Sanming's guess just now is going to become a reality. San Laozu's expression changed. He looked at the two groups of people in the distance, but he couldn't see anything, so he asked with some doubt, Martial Nephew Tianlin, how do you know? As if to confirm Jiang Tianlin Laozu's words, just as his voice fell, the cultivators of Songhai sect and Linggu sect who seemed to have found some treasure at the edge of the dojo flew back again. In mid-air, the 5 rays of light paused for a moment, as if they were discussing something. Then, Linggu sect's Laozu brought Zhang Shi to the Shui Yen Pavilion and Hai Yen sect's camp, while Dongwu Laozu brought the array master of Linggu sect and the strong cultivator to Xian Ling sect's camp. Jiang Tianlin Laozu didn't directly answer Sanming Laozu's question. Instead, he said, Xian Ling sect, Fei Ling sect, Shui Yen Pavilion, and Hai Yen sect, these 4 sects are unable to break through the restriction, so they will definitely ask Songhai sect and Linggu sect to rejoin them. This way, the power of these 2 restriction areas will increase to 3 Dharma adepts, and the formation masters of both sides will each have a formation master assisting them. At the same time, don't forget that Songhai sect should also have many treasures that can break restrictions. When we broke the 5-colored restriction, because we underestimated the protection of the 6-colored restriction area, we had already used up 2 5-colored restriction-breaking talismans. Now, with the combined power of the 3 sects, we only have these 3 talismans. This Songhai sect has a good plan. They want to reap some benefits from each of the 2 restriction areas. This way, even if Songhai sect and Linggu sect don't occupy the 6-colored restriction area, the benefits they will obtain after coming down will not be lesser. After Dongwu Laozu said something to Feng Shudao, Tong Jian Laozu took out 2 5-colored talismans from his storage artifact and handed them to Feng Shudao, whose face was filled with joy. After Feng Shudao received the talisman, the Shui Yen Pavilion and the Hai Yen sect had already started attacking the light barrier with the help of the Linggu sect's old ancestor and Zhang Shi. Soon after, the Xian Ling sect side also started attacking. For a moment, the Yingtian dojo was once again filled with the loud rumbling of spells. This time, even Jiang Tianlin Laozu seemed to be a little hesitant. Tong Jian Laozu thought that Jiang Tianlin Laozu couldn't make up his mind, so he said loudly, who cares if it can break the restriction or not, we have to give it a try first. Lu Ping knew that it wasn't that Jiang Tianlin Laozu didn't want to give it a try, but he was hesitating whether to use the seven-colored restriction-breaking talisman in his hand. That was Jinling's trump card to break the restriction in the Yingtian dojo. Lu Ping looked at the seven-colored restriction palace in the center and pondered for a moment. Finally, he made up his mind. He stepped forward and said, "Martial uncle, perhaps this disciple has a way to weaken the restriction's protection a little more after using the restriction-breaking talisman." Jiang Tianlin Laozu's eyes lit up when he heard this. He said, "What else do you have?" When Lu Ping heard Jiang Tianlin Laozu's words, he knew that Jiang Tianlin was also reluctant to use the seven-colored restriction-breaking talisman on the six-colored restriction. He smiled in his heart and said, "This disciple once learned a set of restriction-breaking secret technique from martial uncle Liang Xianfeng. Perhaps it can weaken this light curtain again. At that time, our speed of breaking the restriction may be faster than the restriction's recovery speed." Before Jiang Tianlin Laozu could say anything, Daoist Shenchen said happily, "Senior brother Liang taught you a restriction-breaking secret technique? Why didn't you say so earlier?" Sanming Laozu smiled and said, "I was wondering why your sect didn't let martial nephew Liang Xianfeng participate in this operation this time. With martial nephew Liang Xuanfeng's attainments in the restriction-breaking secret technique, I think the trip to Yingtian dojo this time will be even smoother. However, this disciple of your sect has actually received martial nephew Liang Xuanfeng's secret technique. I think it's possible." Lu Ping didn't expect perfected Liang Xianfeng to be so famous in the restriction-breaking technique. Even a Dharma stage cultivator like Sanming Laozu respected him. However, he knew the real reason why perfected Liang Xianfeng didn't come was because he and Chu Xuancheng had reached the critical stage of advancing to the Dharma stage. Therefore, they had to cultivate in seclusion in the True Spirit Grotto Heaven at the top of Tianling Mountain. Otherwise, Jinling would never lack perfected Liang Xianfeng, a restriction-breaking expert, in his seclusion exploration. Jiang Tianlin Laozu also seemed to have a sudden realization. He seemed to have some understanding of what happened between perfected Liang Xianfeng and Lu Ping in the East Sea, but he obviously didn't think about this just now. Therefore, Jiang Tianlin Laozu didn't hesitate anymore and said to perfected Xianchen, "In that case, let's give it a try." The difficulty of breaking the six-colored restriction was obviously beyond everyone's expectations. Although the cultivators who occupied the other two areas started to Jinling to break the restriction first, the light curtain of the two restrictions was still standing after a full 10 minutes. It was just that the luster looked slightly dimmer. Perfected Xianchen activated the array formation and then focused all his energy on suppressing the restriction light curtain. Jiang Tianlin Laozu activated 3 5-colored restriction-breaking talismans in a row, and 3 5-colored rays of light brushed against the light curtain one after another. Meanwhile, Lu Ping, who had been preparing for a long time, surged all the quintessential essence in his body and fully executed a set of restriction-breaking secret techniques from the mysterious purple jade slips he obtained from Failing Mountain. Although perfected Xuanchen's quintessential essence was restrained by the array formation beneath his feet, his eyes couldn't help but twitch when he saw the restriction-breaking secret technique that Lu Ping's hands were like butterflies fluttering through flowers. Restrictions and array formations were fields that were extremely closely related. As an array formation grandmaster, perfected Xianchen had dabbled in restriction-breaking secret techniques. He usually had many discussions with perfected Liang Xianfeng, who was proficient in restriction-breaking techniques. Naturally, he could sense something from Lu Ping's restriction-breaking secret technique. However, he didn't say anything. Instead, he lowered his head and continued to control the array formation beneath his feet with all his might. Lu Ping hadn't used this secret technique before because he was afraid that perfected Xianchen would see through it and suspect him. However, now that he was about to return empty-handed from a treasure trove, Lu Ping couldn't care too much. After all, he couldn't use the precious 7-colored restriction-breaking talisman on something like this. The secret technique that Lu Ping was using now was much longer and more complicated than the restriction-breaking secret technique that he had used when he entered the Yingtian dojo. Naturally, its power was much stronger than before. However, the conditions for using this secret technique were extremely harsh. It could only be used on a restriction that had been weakened by perfected Xuanqin's array formation in advance. Every time Lu Ping made a seal, he would leave an inextinguishable trace of spirit qi in the air. When the 108 seals were completed, the 108 spirit qi imprints formed a beautiful strange bird with strange five-colored tail feathers in the air. The strange bird let out a long cry, and the five-colored tail feathers behind it swept towards the light curtain in front of it. The light curtain that had already been weakened by two colors shook violently, and countless spirit stars exploded and danced in all directions. When Jiang Tianlin Laozu saw the large five-colored bird formed by Lu Ping's restriction secret technique, he couldn't help but be startled. He seemed to be thinking about something. However, after the large bird swept its tail feathers towards the light curtain, Jiang Tianlin Laozu's eyes suddenly shot out two rays of light that were 3 feet long. He saw something through the dancing spirit stars in the sky, and then his face lit up with joy. He said, "What a good restriction-breaking secret technique. This time, we might be able to enter the other two places first." Copper Sword Laozu was the most impatient. When he heard this, he swung the copper sword in his hand and took the lead to slash at the light curtain. After that, Jiang Tianlin Laozu and San Ming Laozu attacked almost at the same time. Perfected Xian Su and the others were not willing to fall behind. Only Lu Ping and perfected Xianqin did not participate in the first wave of attack from the 3 sections. Perfected Xianqin naturally had to control the formation under his feet in order to weaken the light curtain as much as possible. After using the restriction-breaking secret technique just now, Lu Ping seemed to have consumed a lot of his strength. He didn't have the strength to attack at full strength for a while. Lu Ping took a deep breath and a purplish-blue light flashed across his face. The true essence in his core space immediately flowed into his veins, quickly replenishing the true essence he had consumed from casting the secret technique. The golden scale sword swayed in the air and a purple thunderbolt fell from the sky. The golden scale sword transformed into a four-legged serpent shrouded in purple thunderbolts from head to toe. The serpent then charged towards the light barrier. This attack was much more powerful than ordinary great sword techniques. This was also the first time that Lu Ping had thought of combining the lightning power of the 7 treasures Thunder Calabash and Lu Ping's sword techniques into one. He didn't expect that it would be so powerful. Then, Lu Ping took out a talisman weapon from his storage device. It was the one that he had given to Debao previously. It was unknown when Lu Ping had taken it back. Poor Debao had only used this talisman weapon once since he had obtained it. Lu Ping placed this talisman weapon, which had been infused with enough qi, on Landslide. Then, he raised Landslide in midair. Landslide fell, and because Lu Ping had infused it with qi, it turned into a bluish-purple light, which greatly increased the power of Landslide. With a loud bang, this attack was almost as powerful as a normal attack from a Dharma adept. Although Bronze Sword Laozu and Sanming Laozu had long heard of this most outstanding third-generation disciple of Jinling, and the strength that he had displayed during the process of breaking the restriction had surprised the two Laozu, Lu Ping's 2 consecutive attacks still made the two Laozu look at him in a different light. Bronze Sword Laozu slashed out with his sword and destroyed a rainbow restriction. Then, he asked Jiang Tianlin Laozu, who was next to him, "Has this kid really only trained for less than 100 years? Jiang Tianlin Laozu smiled faintly and said, "He's just borrowing the external power of a talisman weapon. It's not his own strength." Although Copper Sword Ancestor didn't see the 7 treasures Thunder Calabash, he saw the talisman weapon stuck on the landslide. Although he was still surprised, at least his suspicions about Lu Ping's monstrous offensive prowess were lessened. Thanks to Lu Ping's mysterious restriction-breaking secret technique, and Jinling and the other 2 sects were originally stronger than the other sects. Although Jinling was the last to attack the 6-colored restriction area, after a full hour, they had already caught up and surpassed Xian Ling's sect, Shui Yen Pavilion, and Hai Yen's sect. As Jiang Tianlin Laozu's Dharma wood wand circled in the sky, its 108 feathers formed a strangling formation that covered the entire light curtain. Then, a series of crisp sounds could be heard, and the light curtain was finally broken. After continuously attacking the light curtain with all his strength, Even someone as strong as Jiang Tianlin Laozu seemed to be a little short of qi in his body. However, before everyone could enjoy the joy of breaking the restriction, a strange cold snort suddenly came from the small palace in front of them. Jiang Tianlin Laozu's expression suddenly changed, and then there was a trace of surprise. Then, this trace of surprise was well hidden by Jiang Tianlin Laozu. He ignored Bronze Sword Laozu and Sanming Laozu's surprise at the cold snort coming from the palace, and walked into the palace first. There was a trace of urgency in his footsteps. Chapter 655. In this world, the great adepts of the late Dharma stage had a lifespan of at most 1,500 years. Beyond that, there were those who had achieved the celestial soul. If such beings did not leave this world, they would only have a lifespan of 2,000 years. In Lu Ping's impression, those who could live for 4,000 years were only spirit herbs, spirit trees, and spirit demons like the dragon pagoda tree. Therefore, when Lu Ping heard the cold snort coming from the palace, he felt his heart palpitate for no reason. Could it be that there was a cultivator from the Yingtian sect who had lived for more than 4,000 years hidden in this palace? However, when he saw Jiang Tianlin Laozu enter the palace without any hesitation, followed by Tong Jian and Sanming Laozu, Lu Ping and the others no longer had any doubts. They followed behind the three Laozu cultivators and walked into the palace. The people who heard the cold snort were not the only ones who heard it. Feng Shutao, Donghua Laozu, and the others in the distance also heard it clearly. Feng Shutao's expression immediately changed when he heard the cold snort. When he turned his head to look, he saw Jiang Tianlin's figure disappear into the palace. Feng Shutao's eyes twitched, but he tried his best to maintain a calm expression. He then focused all his attention on the light screen in front of him. Perhaps after he broke this light screen, there would also be a cold snort coming from inside. However, when that happened, he would have to snatch it from the cultivator from the Songhai sect first. However, none of this escaped Donghua Laozu's eyes. Donghua Laozu was confused about what that cold snort was, but he knew that it was definitely not a cultivator from the Yingtian sect who was still alive in the palace. In the world of cultivation, he had never heard of anyone who could extend their lifespan to 4,000 years, not even those who had achieved a celestial soul. Donghua Laozu turned to Feng Shutao and asked, "Nephew Feng, do you know what that cold snort was?" Feng Shutao faked a smile and said, "How would I know? Could it be a surviving Yingtian faction cultivator?" Feng Shutao chuckled dryly as he said this. Donghua Laozu was cursing in his heart, but there was nothing he could do about it. He had already made up his mind that if he heard a cold harumph from within the light barrier, he was going to rush in at once to see what it was. The Donghua elder casually slammed a spell onto the light screen, and his eyes inadvertently glanced over. He noticed that the corners of Feng Shutao's mouth were moving slightly, while the Dharma adept of the Feiyu sect on the other side was nodding his head almost imperceptibly. It was obvious that the two of them were discussing something and had already reached an agreement. Donghua Laozu turned his head, and his expression darkened. He was sure that the two of them had been discussing the cold snort, and from the looks of it, Feng Shutao was obviously aware of the cold snort, and it was obvious that he was discussing something with the Dharma adept of the Feiyu sect to target Donghua Laozu. After Jiang Tianlin Laozu entered the palace, he realized that this small palace was indeed a spatial ritual implement. However, this palace was not like the House of Gold, which was like a small world. Instead, it was like a palace. The only difference was that the space within this palace was far larger than the one outside. Jiang Tianlin Laozu quickly passed through the palace and headed deeper into the palace. Along the way, the lights of various treasures danced in the air, but Jiang Tianlin Laozu ignored them. Tong Jian Laozu and Sanming Laozu were dazzled by the dozens of lights that danced in the air the moment they entered the palace. At their level of cultivation, there were not many treasures that could catch their attention. However, among the dozens of lights, there were clearly many that had caught their attention. While the two of them were dazed, Jiang Tianlin Laozu had already disappeared into the depths of the palace. Tong Jian and Sanming Laozu finally managed to break free from the temptation of the treasures. They looked at each other and smiled bitterly. Then, they quickly chased after Jiang Tianlin Laozu. When Laozu and Sanming saw the lights flying in the palace, they were unable to control themselves, let alone Xian Su, Xian Sen, and the other late-stage core forging cultivators. Comparatively speaking, when the two late-stage core forging cultivators from the Jade Sword sect and Chongming's sect saw the lights, their expressions were far more shocked than the people from Jinling. This also showed that Jinling's foundation was far more profound than these two sections. This caused the cultivators from the two sects to be inferior to cultivators of the same level as Jinling in terms of cultivation and knowledge. When Lu Ping saw the lights flying in the sky, he couldn't help but be stunned. Although his knowledge was not inferior to that of Daoist Xian Sen and the others, any late-stage core forging cultivator would not have a better expression than Lu Ping when they saw 7 or 8 magic treasures that were obviously at the spirit-nurturing level flying in the air. Lu Ping's eyes flashed with a green light as he looked at a scarlet light. The treasure that was wrapped in the light was obviously a cauldron that looked like a pill furnace. Lu Ping was 100% sure that it was a top-grade pill furnace. Lu Ping roughly examined the dozens of lights. The lowest grade treasure among them was also a spirit-connected mystic treasure. There were also a variety of treasure boxes, jade bottles, and the like. Although he couldn't examine them for the time being, judging from the intensity of the light shrouding these treasures, the items inside were probably more precious than the spirit-connected mystic treasures. As the three patriarchs had already made their way deep into the palace, the cultivators from the three sects did not move to collect the treasures without the approval of the three patriarchs. Although the treasures were tempting to look at, none of them moved to collect them. At this moment, a cold snort came from the depths of the palace. This cold snort was even louder than the previous one. It even impacted everyone's divine sense. Moreover, this cold snort seemed to carry a trace of anger. Everyone's expressions changed, but they weren't too worried. After all, the three Laozus had gone together. Moreover, there were no sounds of fighting coming from the depths of the palace. Everyone waited here for about the time it took to drink a cup of tea, but there was still no news from the depths of the palace. Unable to restrain themselves, they discussed going to the depths of the palace where the three Laozus had gone to take a look. However, after they advanced for a few dozen feet, an invisible barrier suddenly blocked their way. Lu Ping held the golden scale sword in his hand and stabbed forward. Lu Ping stabbed the invisible barrier more than 3 feet into it before it rebounded. The two late core forging cultivators from Yujin's sect and Chongming's sect looked like they had seen a ghost. Just now, the cultivator from Yujin's sect had touched the invisible barrier first and had tried to use the flying sword in his hand to cut through the barrier. However, the flying sword had only pierced 7 or 8 inches before it could go any further. Sage Xian Sen and Sage Xian Su, on the other hand, seemed to have expected this. In order not to be shocked by their own juniors, they acted as if they hadn't seen anything. Lu Ping scratched his head and asked Sage Xian Chen with some uncertainty, "Uncle Master, is this barrier the famous cultivation barrier of the cultivation world?" Sage Xian Chen's knowledge of arrays and restrictions was clearly far above Lu Ping's. Hearing this, he nodded and said, "Yes, the cultivation barrier can determine a cultivator's level of cultivation based on the aura around them. This is a Dharma stage cultivation barrier. Only those who have reached the Dharma stage can pass through this barrier without any obstacles. Cultivators below the Dharma stage will be blocked by this barrier." Sage Xian Chen paused and then said pointedly, "Actually, although this cultivation barrier is strange, it is not unbreakable. If a person's level of cultivation is not enough, but their strength is comparable to that of a Dharma stage cultivator, it is not impossible to break this cultivation barrier through violent means." For some reason, Lu Ping heard a hint of provocation in Sage Xian Chen's tone. At this moment, a low grunt came from the depths of the palace after the cultivation barrier was broken. This grunt was different from the previous cold grunt. It seemed to contain a trace of fear. Everyone looked at each other, not knowing what had happened in the depths of the palace. However, from these three sounds, it seemed that the three Laozu's situation was not too bad. After a while, Lu Ping asked hesitantly, Uncle Master Xian Chen, if we combine our strength, we can definitely match that of a Dharma stage cultivator. Can we break this cultivation barrier? Sage Xian Chen opened his mouth and was about to speak, but he suddenly felt that the cultivation barrier in front of him was strange. When he turned to look, he saw Bronze Sword Laozu and Sanming Laozu walk out from the depths of the palace. However, Lu Ping and the others did not see Jiang Tianlin Laozu. Bronze Sword Laozu and Sanming Jinling easily passed through the cultivation barrier. Everyone hurriedly asked the two about what had happened in the depths of the palace. The cultivators in Jinling did not know why Jiang Tianlin Laozu did not come out with the two of them. Bronze Sword Laozu looked at Sage Xian Sen and the others. For some reason, an envious and emotional expression flashed across his face. He said slowly, Nephew Jiang Tianlin has encountered a great opportunity. Don't be impatient. I believe Nephew Jiang will come out soon. Bronze Sword Laozu had just finished speaking when the space in the entire palace suddenly shook violently. When the shaking subsided, Lu Ping looked to his side strangely. Then, he sent the flying sword in his hand forward. The flying sword pierced tens of feet away without any obstruction. Lu Ping hurriedly kept the golden scale sword and said, the cultivation barrier has disappeared. Bronze Sword Laozu and Sanming Laozu looked at each other. When they looked into the depths of the palace, they found that a space door had suddenly opened beside them. Jiang Tianlin Laozu stepped out of the door. He did not know if it was an illusion, but when he saw Jiang Tianlin Laozu, Lu Ping felt that Jiang Tianlin Laozu seemed to be covered with a mysterious veil. The aura around him was like turbulent waves, fluctuating unsteadily. Bronze Sword Laozu and Sanming Laozu cupped their hands at Jiang Tianlin Laozu and said, Congratulations, Nephew Jiang, for your great improvement in your cultivation. You will soon reach the mid-Dharma stage. Old Ancestor Jiang Tianlin bowed to the two of them and said, Thank you, seniors, for letting me have it. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been able to refine this Dharma Laksana 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 Laksana. Bronze Sword Laozu and Sanming Laozu's faces turned red. Bronze Sword Laozu smiled bitterly and said, Nephew Jiang, you don't have to flatter us. Neither of us can refine that Dharma power soul. Only you can suppress it with your strength. Being able to obtain it is your opportunity. It has nothing to do with the two of us. Jiang Tianlin Laozu smiled and did not dwell on this issue. He reached out and pointed at the dozens of balls of light that had stopped flying in the sky. These balls of light flew in front of everyone and landed neatly. Jiang Tianlin Laozu smiled and said, We agreed that this spatial instrument belongs to our sect, and the other gains will be split equally. Just now, I was lucky enough to obtain a Dharma power soul, so I have already picked one treasure first. Both of you can choose one of these dozens of treasures, and we will split the rest equally. Bronze Sword Laozu smiled and said, All right, then I won't stand on ceremony with the old man first. Sanming Laozu's face was also filled with joy. Among these dozens of treasures, he had already taken a fancy to a few of them. Now that Jiang Tianlin let the two of them pick first, he could take the most valuable treasure among the treasures that he had taken a fancy to. Bronze Sword Laozu's face was full of smiles as he directly put away the crimson top-grade alchemy furnace that Lu Ping had seen just now. Lu Ping felt a burst of pain when he saw it. And the treasure that Sanming Laozu took made Lu Ping a little surprised. It was actually an ancient zither. When Lu Ping saw this ancient zither, his heart skipped a beat, as if the qi in his body was triggered. When Jiang Tianlin Laozu saw Sanming Laozu put away the ancient zither, he raised his eyebrows unconsciously. Obviously, this ancient zither was also quite important to Jiang Tianlin Laozu. After being picked by Sanming Laozu, he also felt a bit pained. This time, Lu Ping's mysterious restriction-breaking secret technique had made a great contribution. Therefore, the treasures in the palaces that the three factions had previously discussed were to be divided equally. After that, the two Laozu urged Jinling to choose first. Jiang Tianlin Laozu declined slightly and then agreed. After a few rounds of selection, dozens of treasures were divided among the three factions. Everyone had their own gains. Jiang Tianlin Laozu smiled and said, "The matter here is over. We should also go out and see how the other 2 6-color forbidden areas are being cracked." Tong Jian Laozu was stunned and said, "Aren't we going to occupy the colorful palace in the center first?" Sanming Laozu smiled a little impatiently and said, "Brother Tong Jian, the 6-colored restriction is already so difficult. The 7-colored restriction is a total of 49 colors. How can our 3 factions break it?" When everyone left the palace, they saw Jiang Tianlin Laozu patting the stone pillar at the entrance of the palace. The entire palace suddenly trembled, and the palace slowly rose. Then, it gradually shrank to the size of a palm and disappeared into Jiang Tianlin Laozu's sleeve. When everyone looked at the other 2 palaces that had already been broken, they saw that the cultivators of the other 6 factions had long disappeared. They must have entered the palaces. At this time, Jiang Tianlin turned to Tong Jian and Sanming Laozu and said, "Since there is no way to break the restriction of the colorful central palace for the time being, we will go to the surroundings of the dojo and see what treasures the Blue Sea sect cultivators found." Chapter 656. Jinling naturally knew what treasure the Blue Sea sect had discovered. On the ground at the edge of the dojo, Bronze Sword Laozu discovered the spirit stone vein that was covered by a restriction from afar. Bronze Sword Laozu was surprised and said, I didn't expect there to be any treasures in this border area." Bronze Sword Laozu swung his 2 fingers like a sword, and a sword chi smashed the simple restriction on the ground into pieces. A mine entrance appeared in front of everyone. "This is..." Bronze Sword Laozu looked at the mine entrance on the ground. With his divine will, he could easily discover the secret hidden in the depths of the mine entrance after breaking the restriction. Sanming Laozu was also a little surprised and sighed regretfully. "It's actually a medium-sized spirit stone vein. It's a pity that we don't have a Grotto Heaven magic treasure, so there's no way to move it now." Bronze Sword Laozu said, "Even if we don't have a Grotto Heaven magic treasure and can't take this mine away, we just have to move it out of this Grotto Heaven." Sanming Laozu shook his head and said, "There's not enough time. To move this mine, we have to set up an extremely complicated relocation Dharma formation." Sanming Laozu glanced at perfected Xianqin and said, "With martial nephew Xianqin around, there's no need to worry about this. It's just that we don't have enough time. I'm afraid that before we can set up the Dharma formation, the cultivators of the other sects will come out from the other 2 palace spaces." Bronze Sword Laozu wanted to say something, but Sanming Laozu seemed to know what he was going to say, so he said, "So what if we can move this spirit stone vein out? This place is thousands of miles away from the North Sea. This mine can't be moved back to the North Sea. Will the sect still have to send cultivators to guard the Yingtian mountain range for this spirit stone vein?" Bronze Sword Laozu looked at the mine in front of him with eyes full of regret, but he also knew that Sanming Laozu's words made sense. Patriarch Jiang Tianlin smiled at the 2 of them and said, "Seniors, please don't be impatient. Maybe we can find a way to move this spiritual mineral vein today. However, if we want to move such a spiritual mineral vein, I'm afraid it will be beyond our power to do it alone without the help of the 2 of you." Bronze Sword Laozu perked up and said, "Oh, what's the method? Tell me." Sanming Laozu was puzzled. He said, "Jinling, Tianlin, Jinling, sect, sword spirit stone vein, Jinling, sect, Jinling, Tianlin, Jinling, yang, and Jinling, spirit, and yang, Tianlin, Jing's son, sect, Ziyang, Tian, Zhou, sect, moon sect, Ziyang, Wuliang, yang, sect, and zone." However, he did not show his doubts on his face. As an ally of Jinling's sect strength would directly affect the stability of Chongming's sect's position in the North Sea's cultivation world. At present, it was very beneficial for Chongming's sect. Each of the sects in the North Sea had their own independent inheritance system and traditional sphere of influence. Although Jinling's strength and expansion attracted Yujin's sect and Chongming, it would inevitably affect his allies in the future. When that time came, it was unknown whether Chongming and Yujin's sect would be able to maintain their independence. Jiang Tianlin Laozu looked at the silent Sanming Laozu with a faint smile. Sanming Laozu was shocked and quickly suppressed his thoughts. He was now very clear that, based on the current situation, Chongming's sect could only follow closely behind Jinling, which was getting stronger day by day. As for the future, Sanming Laozu smiled bitterly in his heart. It would depend on the development of the sect. Ancestor Jiang Tianlin glanced at the silent Sanming sect's ancestor with a faint smile. The Sanming sect's ancestor was startled and hurriedly suppressed his thoughts. He was now very clear that the Chongming sect could only follow closely behind the increasingly powerful Jinling sect. At the very least, the Chongming sect's immediate benefits could still be guaranteed. As for the future, the Sanming sect's ancestor smiled bitterly in his heart. It would depend on the sect's own development. Ancestor Jiang Tianlin stretched out his hand, and a bronze mirror glowing with green light appeared in his hand. Sanming Laozu looked at the bronze mirror in Jiang Tianlin Laozu's hand and suddenly thought of something. His expression changed, and he said in shock, "Yesterday, the three Laozu in the Yingtian Mountains seemed to have joined forces to fight against one person. It seemed to be for the Yingshu mirror. Could it be that this bronze mirror, impossible?" The bronze sword Laozu jumped up, but saw Jiang Tianlin Laozu smiling and nodding, so his words became a little awkward. He said, You really broke through the siege of 3 Dharma adepts of the same level, and even injured Changhe Laozu, who was at the peak of the early Dharma stage." Sanming Laozu's heart sank. He had already believed that Jiang Tianlin Laozu was the person from last night. Although Jiang Tianlin Laozu's level of practice was the same as his level of practice was much higher than that of other adepts of the same level. Previously, when everyone had joined forces to attack the light screen, although the two of them were amazed by Jiang Tianlin Laozu's strength, it was only now that the two of them realized that Jiang Tianlin Laozu had actually been holding back. Last night, when the 4 Laozu were fighting, Sanming Laozu and the others naturally did not miss it, and had long been hiding at the side to watch. However, because the various sects were afraid of exposing their tracks and alerting the enemy, they could only watch from afar. Jiang Tianlin Laozu's secret technique of hiding his own aura was really brilliant, so no one had recognized that the practitioner who had snatched the treasured mirror of abundance was actually Jinling's Jiang Tianlin. The reason why Sanming Laozu smiled bitterly was not because of the difference between him and Jiang Tianlin, who was also at the early Dharma stage, but because Jinling had someone like Jiang Tianlin here. At least until Jiang Tianlin fell, Chongming, Jade Sword, and the other sects could only be loyal allies of Jinling. Thinking about the Dharma soul that Jiang Tianlin Laozu had just inherited in the palace space, which made Jiang Tianlin Laozu's cultivation and strength greatly improved, Sanming Laozu smiled bitterly in his heart. As for the future, Sanming Laozu looked at Lu Ping, who had cultivated for less than 100 years, and sighed in his heart, time, fate. Copper Sword Laozu did not think so much. Seeing the treasured mirror of abundance in Jiang Tianlin Laozu's hand, although his face was full of envy, he said anxiously, "Then what are you waiting for? Hurry up and set up the relocation formation. Otherwise, when the people from the other sects come out, I am afraid it will be a different story." Jiang Tianlin Laozu was not in a hurry, but turned his head and nodded at Lu Ping. Lu Ping understood and stamped his foot, and a bluish-purple light penetrated into the ground. Copper Sword and Sanming Laozu did not know what Lu Ping's intention was at first, but after a while, the two of them seemed to have discovered something, and their faces showed a surprised expression. De Bao's fat body jumped up from the ground, and he suddenly felt several tyrannical auras around him shrouding him. His instinct urged him to quickly hide behind Lu Ping, and then he began to slowly look around. Unexpectedly, De Bao's sudden appearance in the Yingtian dojo, and when he was hiding underground, even Fa Xiang Laozu did not notice his existence, causing everyone to stare behind him. When De Bao turned around, he happened to see countless shining divine lights staring at him. Coming from the nature of the spirit-seeking mouse, De Bao's brain shrank, and he desperately wanted to hide his body behind Lu Ping to avoid everyone's eyes. However, although Lu Ping was also considered burly, he still could not hide De Bao's fat body. Sanming Laozu looked at the timid Debao. Although he was surprised at Debao's outstanding talent in the earth escape art, he still looked a little worried. Martial nephew Tianlin, although this disciple of your sect is extremely talented in the earth escape art, once he is discovered by the cultivators of the other sects, I'm afraid that Xianling's sect and Songhai sect will use Jinling as an excuse to break the sect's oath to attack him together. Copper Sword Laozu also said, originally, your sect had 4 core forging cultivators, but now it has become 5. I'm afraid it's really not appropriate. Although Yujin's sect and Chongming's sect were Jinling's allies, these two sects were independent and not under Jinling's control. If Jinling really brought 5 core forging cultivators into the Yingtian dojo, it was obvious that he had broken the rules set by the sects of the North Sea. Even if Chongming's sect and Yujin's sect were on Jinling's side, they would not allow Jinling to trample on the rules of the North Sea's cultivation world. Jiang Tianlin Laozu looked at the two of them in confusion. When he looked at Debao, he suddenly frowned. Then, when he saw the golden necklace hanging around Debao's neck, he suddenly realized something and asked Lu Ping in surprise, demonization bracelet? You actually have this treasure? Only then did Lu Ping remember that Debao still had the demonization bracelet that Lu Ping had given to him. No wonder Sanming Laozu and Copper Sword Laozu showed dissatisfaction. It turned out that they had regarded Debao as Jinling's disciple. The name of the demonization bracelet not only surprised Jiang Tianlin Laozu, but also Copper Sword Laozu and Sanming Laozu. The fat, timid boy in front of them was actually a demon cultivator. However, when Lu Ping took off the golden necklace from Debao's neck, Copper Sword Laozu and Sanming Laozu were even more surprised. Spirit-seeking mouse? Copper Sword Laozu looked as if he had seen a ghost and said, Spirit-seeking mouse can also cultivate to the transformation stage. Although Sanming Laozu didn't say anything, the expression on his face also showed that his mood at the moment was probably not much different from Copper Sword Laozu's. Different from Copper Sword and Sanming Laozu's surprise that Debao, who was born as a spirit-seeking mouse, could cultivate to the transformation stage, Jiang Tianlin Laozu's interest was completely attracted by the demonization bracelet in Lu Ping's hand. Have you met the cultivators of the Spirit Beast sect? Jiang Tianlin Laozu asked solemnly. Lu Ping didn't know why Jiang Tianlin Laozu looked so solemn, but he still shook his head and said, This is what I obtained previously. After Copper Sword and Sanming Laozu heard the conversation between the two, they realized that compared to a spirit-seeking mouse that cultivated to the transformation stage, the power behind the demonization bracelet was more shocking. Jiang Tianlin Laozu knew that the previously that Lu Ping mentioned referred to Yingtian dojo, so he nodded and said, The demonization bracelet is magical and ingenious. I think you have more than one. Remember to give one of them to your master when you go back. Although Lu Ping didn't know why Jiang Tianlin Laozu gave such an order, he still agreed. At this time, Debao had already handed an array disc to Daoist Xianchen. Daoist Xianchen followed the diagram and checked the array that Debao had previously set up in the spirit mineral vein. After finding that there were no mistakes, he said to Jiang Tianlin Laozu, Senior brother, you can start. Chapter 657. Lu Ping explained Debao's identity as his spiritual pet to Tong Jian and Sanming Laozu, dispelling the two Laozu's suspicions that Jinling had violated the agreement between the sects in the North Sea. Then, he told them about how Jiang Tianlin Laozu deliberately lagged behind when he entered the Yingtian dojo and almost crashed into the spatial crack. He threw Debao from his sleeve into the ground the moment he landed in a sorry state, thus hiding it from Laozu. Sanming Laozu finally couldn't suppress the doubts in his heart and couldn't help but ask, could it be that your sect already knew that there would be a spirit stone vein in the Yingtian dojo? You're actually so well prepared. Not only that, after entering the dojo, your sect seemed to have a good understanding of the distribution of restrictions in the dojo. It was also under your sect's guidance that my Chongming and Jade Sword sects were able to have a far more abundant harvest in the dojo than Linggu and Feiyu sects. Lu Ping shook his head and said with a smile, we don't have the ability to predict the future, So how could we know the situation in the dojo? We just prepared for a rainy day and made various preparations. As for my spiritual pet, the spirit-seeking mouse, it was precisely because he had the opportunity to advance to the core forging stage that he had more talent in searching for spiritual treasures than ordinary spirit-seeking mice. That's why I played a little trick and begged Martial Uncle Tianlin to bring him in. I didn't expect him to really discover this mine. Sanming Laozu was still skeptical, but at this moment, he heard spiritual master Xuanqin's words. Jiang Tianlin Laozu then said, "It would be extremely difficult for me to quickly move this spirit stone vein into the treasure mirror's grotto heaven by myself. I'll have to ask the two seniors to help me. After we return to the North Sea, the Jade Sword sect and Chong Ming's sect can take a total of 40% of the spirit stone vein's production." Tong Jian Laozu and Sanming Laozu showed a trace of joy on their faces. Tong Jian Laozu said loudly, "All right, then my Jade Sword school will take 20% of the spirit stone vein." Sanming Laozu also said in a deep voice, "Then it's a deal between us three sects." Of course, the two sects wouldn't obtain a total of 40% of the spirit stone production just because they helped Jiang Tianlin Laozu relocate the spirit stone mine. Jinling would definitely cause the other sects to object if he took the spirit stone mine. At that time, the two sects would naturally support Jinling for their vested interests. Jiang Tianlin Laozu raised the Yingshu treasure mirror high, and a cyan light shot out from the mirror, shining straight into the mine. Daoist Xianchen activated the array disc in his hand, which was used to guide the earth vein. The array disc also fell into the mine and disappeared. Immediately afterward, there was a burst of shaking in the mine. With a puff, a cyan light suddenly ejected from the ground. Then, as the ground shook more and more violently, like a chain reaction, cyan light pillars ejected from different areas on the ground one after another, spreading everywhere as if there was no pattern. Lu Ping knew that the direction of these cyan light pillars was actually the direction of the spirit stone vein underground. These cyan light pillars were like steel nails, firmly locking the spirit stone vein. Then, with the support of the array arranged underground, the entire spirit stone vein could be completely moved into the Yingshu treasure mirror. Jiang Tianlin Laozu saw that there were no more light pillars coming from the ground, so he shouted to the other two Laozu, "Seniors, now is the time." The three Dharma idol Laozu attacked together, and three incomparably abundant pillars of spirit energy formed above the spirit stone vein. Then, the three pillars of spirit energy intertwined with each other, and finally, the three of them joined forces to form a giant three-colored hand that seemed to cover the sky. The giant three-colored hand fell, and 5 three-colored fingers inserted into the ground. Then, the giant hand clenched tightly, and the ground suddenly cracked. The entire spirit stone vein was suddenly separated from the ground. On the ground, Lu Ping and the others looked at the giant hand, which seemed to be completely disrupting the world. The giant hand suddenly lifted up, and a series of roars came from the ground. The ground shook more and more violently, and the entire spirit stone vein slowly rose from the ground. A series of spatial cracks continued to emerge from the ground. Not good, the migration of this spirit stone vein has affected the stability of this space. This kind of forced migration will greatly reduce the existence time of the Yingtian Dojo's space. The three bright old ancestors said worriedly as he looked at the grayish spatial fragments that were revealed after the spiritual stone vein gradually rose up. We can't care so much anymore. Even if we put down this spiritual vein now, we won't be able to repair the entire space where the dojo is located. We can only collect this spiritual vein before the space of the Yingtian Dojo completely collapses. Only then will we have gained something. Jiang Tianlin Laozu said coldly, and then the spiritual ether in his hand shone brightly. At this time, the sky-treasured mirror had already expanded to the size of a bright moon, and the green light completely enveloped the entire giant three-colored hand. At this moment, one of the two remaining palaces after the previous 6-colored restriction was broken suddenly burst out with a violent explosion. After that, the roar was endless, as if a chaotic battle had broken out in the space of the palace. The entire palace even began to tremble slightly. Obviously, as a spatial artifact, although the space in it was large enough, it seemed to be unable to withstand the battle that broke out in the palace. This also meant that the cultivation of the two parties fighting in the space had reached the Dharma manifestation stage. Looking at the crumbling palace that was about to collapse, Tong Jian Laozu let out a strange cry and said, "It's actually the palace that Shuiyan Pavilion, Haiyan sect, and Lingu sect tried to break just now." Obviously, the Laozu of the various sects in the palace finally had an internal conflict. However, Jinling had obviously been looking forward to this situation for a long time. Because Jiang Tianlin Laozu was very sure that if the two Dharma manifestation stage cultivators of Shuiyan Pavilion and Haiyan sect joined forces, even if the Dharma manifestation stage cultivator of Lingu sect had the assistance of Zhang Shi, he would definitely not be a match for them. Now that the battle between the two sides had lasted for such a long time, it was obvious that a chaotic battle had broken out inside. In other words, the real internal conflict was probably between Shuiyan Pavilion and Haiyan sect. Lu Ping and the others all showed joy on their faces. Obviously, they had already thought of this. The alliance between Shuiyan Pavilion and Haiyan sect had been going on for a long time. The two sects were friendly with each other and had always advanced and retreated together in various matters of the North Sea cultivation world. The cultivators of the two sects also often cooperated with each other and had a tacit understanding when dealing with certain matters. The seamless cooperation between the two sects had always been a headache for Xian Ling's sect and now Jinling. Because whether it was Shuiyan Pavilion or Haiyan sect, in terms of individual strength, there was a big gap between them and Xian Ling's sect, Jinling sect, and Songhai sect. However, once the two sects joined forces, apart from Jinling, no other sect was a match for them. This showed the power of the two sects' alliance. Now that the Dharma manifestation adepts of the two sects had obviously fallen out because of something and even started fighting, this might be a great opportunity for Jinling to break up the alliance between the two sections. As for what kind of treasure could make Laozu of the two sects fall out so mercilessly, Tong Jian Laozu and Sanming Laozu could not help but look at Jiang Tianlin. Jiang Tianlin Laozu's expression was a little solemn as he said, "I'm afraid it's also a Dharma manifestation soul." At this moment, a long howl suddenly came from another palace. The howl was full of surprise, and the high-pitched howl contained surging spiritual essence dermic powers. Jinling and the others could clearly hear that it was Feng Shudao's howl. Jiang Tianlin Laozu's expression changed, and he said, "Everyone, attack. We must absorb this spirit stone mine into the treasure mirror before the cultivators from the other sects come out of the palaces." Everyone also knew that the situation was urgent. Once the cultivators from the other sects came out of the palaces, the three sects' plan to monopolize the spirit stone mine would definitely not be realized. This time, Lu Ping took the lead. The bluish-purple spiritual essence turned into a strange four-legged dragon that rushed into the spirit chi pillar that formed the three-colored giant hand. A thin bluish-purple spiritual essence line was faintly discernible in the three-colored spirit chi pillar. It was unexpectedly not assimilated by the spiritual essence of the three Dharma manifestation stage cultivators. Immediately after Lu Ping, the other 5 late core forging stage cultivators also made their moves. They transformed their spiritual essence into different kinds of magic power and integrated it into the three-colored spirit chi pillar to increase the power of the giant hand as much as possible. However, whether it was perfected Master Xian Sen, who was about to condense his golden core, or the late core forging stage cultivators of the other two sects, after their spiritual essence entered the spirit chi pillar in the form of magic power, without exception, their spiritual essence was assimilated into the three-colored spirit chi pillar. Only Lu Ping's bluish-purple spiritual essence line remained firm at the edge of the three-colored spirit chi pillar. Since it was not assimilated by the spiritual essence of the three Laozu, what did this mean? It meant that the quality of the spiritual essence that Lu Ping had cultivated during the core forging stage was extremely high. It meant that the quality of the spiritual essence in Lu Ping's body was not inferior to that of a Dharma manifestation stage cultivator. The spiritual essence of a late core forging stage cultivator might be insignificant, but when the spiritual essence of 6 late core forging stage cultivators were added together, and these 6 late-core forging stage cultivators were the elites of their respective sects. Their power was not inferior to that of a Dharma manifestation stage cultivator. The spiritual essence that was held by the giant hand was slowly being absorbed into the Yingshu cave by the Yingshu treasure mirror. At this moment, the Shuiyan Pavilion, the Hai Yen sect, and the Linggu sect's palaces were finally unable to withstand the endless roars, and the space inside suddenly collapsed. A ball of white light shot up into the sky, followed closely by the 3 Dharma adepts. As they flew towards the ball of white light, they continued to exchange blows. Numerous spells crisscrossed each other, and the spiritual chi that emanated from them caused cracks to appear in the entire space of the hull. Jiang Tianlin Laozu patted his chest. Immediately, a small wooden bird swelled up in the wind, swooped down with its sharp claws, grabbed the half of the earth vein exposed outside the mirror, and loosened its grip on the mirror. An earth-shattering boom rang out from the mirror. The entire mirror trembled in midair before falling to the ground unsteadily. At this moment, an exasperated roar came from another palace. Jiang Tianlin, how dare you! Donghua Laozu flew out of the palace with a menacing aura, and a streak of purple-golden light shot out from his body at an even faster speed, flying toward Jiang Tianlin Laozu, who appeared to be in an extremely feeble state after activating his avatar with all his might to draw the spirit stone mine into the boundless void cave. Chapter 658. Just as the purplish gold light was about to strike Jiang Tianlin Laozu's body, Copper Sword Laozu and Sanming Laozu suddenly burst forward, and a copper sword and 3 balls of light shot out from the hands of the 2 Laozu. Amidst a loud explosion, the purplish gold light was blocked by the joint efforts of the 2 Laozus, but Donghua Laozu was a peak early Dharma adept after all, and although this furious attack was blocked by Copper Sword Laozu and Sanming Laozu, the 2 of them still involuntarily took a few steps back. After this attack, Donghua Laozu's forward momentum was also stopped. However, in the instant that Donghua Laozu was stopped, the Yingshu jeweled mirror, which had been trembling continuously after swallowing the spirit stone mine, suddenly stopped trembling. The smooth surface of the mirror suddenly shone towards Donghua Laozu, and a green light shot towards Donghua Laozu. Donghua Laozu instinctively felt that this light was dangerous, but Jiang Tianlin Laozu's timing was too ingenious. At this moment, Donghua Laozu's body was blocked, and it was difficult for him to move. Donghua Laozu activated the inner yuan in his body and forced his body to move a foot to the left, and the inner yuan in his body suddenly surged like a raging sea, causing Donghua Laozu's face to instantly turn red. Even so, Donghua Laozu was still unable to completely avoid the green light from the Yingshu jeweled mirror, and the right half of his body was covered by the green light from the shoulder down. Donghua Laozu felt the right half of his body go numb, and the inner yuan in the blood vessels on that half of his body seemed to be frozen, and his entire body looked like it was paralyzed. Right at this moment, Jiang Tianlin Laozu, whose face was pale due to the depletion of his quintessential essence, suddenly opened his eyes, and his right palm abruptly slapped in the direction of Donghua Laozu. The void suddenly seemed to be compressed, and it was directly transmitted from Jiang Tianlin Laozu to Donghua Laozu. Donghua Laozu wanted to evade, but he was unable to completely control the right half of his body, even as he struggled to break free from the true essence in his body. At least a third of the true essence in his body had been frozen within the meridians of the right half of his body. Just as Donghua Laozu was about to be struck by Jiang Tianlin Laozu's palm, a purplish-black color suddenly flashed across Donghua Laozu's face, and a mouthful of blood was coughed up by Donghua Laozu, and the right half of his body that had been sealed immediately regained its freedom. In the face of the giant palm in the air, how could Donghua Laozu dare to take it head-on? He immediately turned around to evade, but Donghua Laozu had just turned around when his expression changed again, and he had no choice but to forcibly twist his body once more. His internal organs that were already injured became even worse. A dark blue sword image flashed past the direction the Donghua ancestor was about to dodge. Even though the Donghua ancestor had already noticed it beforehand, he was still unable to completely dodge this dark blue sword image that flashed and vanished in the end. The clothes on his left upper arm were sliced open by a 3-inch wide wound, and a wound that was so deep that bones could be seen suddenly split open on the surface of his skin, causing fresh blood to gush out and instantly drench his sleeve. Dongwu Laozu retreated far away, and he wiped his left arm with his right hand, instantly stopping the bleeding from his wound. Only then did he turn his head to look at Lu Ping, who was standing beside Jiang Tianlin Laozu. Jiang Tianlin Laozu poured out a crimson pill from a jade essence bottle that Lu Ping had handed to him, and he swallowed it. His originally pale face instantly regained some color. Dongwu Laozu glanced at Lu Ping, then looked at the abundant void treasured mirror that was hovering above Jiang Tianlin Laozu's head. At this moment, the mirror had already regained its original simplicity, and it was clear that the spirit stone mine had been completely moved into the abundant void treasured mirror. Dongwu Laozu asked coldly, "Is this the abundant void treasured mirror that Changhe Laozu of the Abundant River sect claimed to have lost last night?" Jiang Tianlin Laozu quickly regained the vital energy in his body with the help of the Dharma manifestation stage pill that Lu Ping had refined, and he smiled as he replied, "That's right, it is indeed the abundant void treasured mirror, but it wasn't stolen from the Abundant River sect. Instead, this mirror was originally a mystic realm that I was lucky enough to discover." Dongwu Laozu nodded, then turned to look at Lu Ping again as he said coldly, "The shapeless sword technique. Who would have thought that your esteemed sect had even obtained the complete inheritance of the Fei Ling sect's great divine sword technique?" Tong Jian Laozu and San Ming Laozu both looked at Lu Ping in shock. This sword technique had been a rather famous one in the Fei Ling sect, but after the Fei Ling sect had been destroyed, many of its inheritances had been lost, and this sword technique had not been passed down for thousands of years. Who would have thought that Jinling would be the one to obtain it? A loud rumble came from behind Dongwu Laozu, and the palace that Dongwu Laozu had been in suddenly rose into the air. It then shrank rapidly before landing in the hands of Feng Shudao, who had just flown out of the palace. A hint of unwillingness flashed across Dongwu Laozu's eyes, but he soon narrowed his eyes and suddenly said in a loud voice, "Martial nephew Feng Shudao, Jinling intends to monopolize a mid-sized spirit stone mine. What do you think?" "What?" Feng Shudao, who was in mid-air, suddenly flashed, and when he reappeared, he was already standing next to Dongwu Laozu. A ferocious aura immediately swept towards Jinling. Tong Jian Laozu and San Ming Laozu's expressions changed drastically, and they exclaimed in shock, "The peak of the early Dharma stage. How is this possible?" Jiang Tianlin Laozu did not know what kind of miracle medicine Lu Ping had given him, but in just a short period of time, the inner yuan in his body had already recovered by 70%, and it was still recovering at a steady rate. Jiang Tianlin Laozu glanced at Feng Shudao and said coldly, "You've completely integrated the essence of that Dharma power spirit into your own inner yuan. Even so, your level of training has greatly increased, but how much of it will still help you break through to the late Dharma stage and become a great adept in the future?" Feng Shudao's expression changed, and then he laughed coldly and said, "At least there is no longer any obstacle for me to break through to the mid-Dharma stage. At least my abilities have greatly improved, and at least there is no one in the Yingtian temple who is a match for me now. As for becoming a great adept, who knows what will happen in a few hundred years?" Jiang Tianlin Laozu laughed coldly and did not say anything. Dongwu Laozu, who was beside him, hesitated for a moment before he composed himself and said to Feng Shudao in a low voice, "Martial nephew Feng, that Jiang Tianlin is the one who snatched the Yingshu treasured mirror from Laozu of the Yinghe triad last night." Feng Shudao's expression changed, and an aura of anger and despair suddenly surged from the bottom of his heart. He had inherited the Dharma power spirit in the space and used the fastest method to increase his level of training, all so that he could defeat Jiang Tianlin in one fell swoop. However, he did not expect that even though he had inherited the Dharma power spirit and his level of training had greatly improved, he would suddenly realize that Jiang Tianlin's abilities were already beyond his imagination. Moreover, Jiang Tianlin had also inherited the Dharma power spirit. However, unlike Feng Shudao, who was eager for quick success, Jiang Tianlin had chosen the most reliable method of inheritance. Although it would not be of much help to his level of training right now, it would be very beneficial for him in the future. 3 early Dharma Laozu, one of whom was at the peak of the early Dharma stage, had been suppressed by Jiang Tianlin in one fell swoop. Jiang Tianlin had even injured the strongest of them, Changhe Laozu, and then left with ease. Even if Feng Shutao were to push his level of training to the peak of the early Dharma stage, he would not be able to achieve such a level of ability. How could this not infuriate him? Ever since Feng Shutao had entered the Dharma stage, it seemed as if fate had played a joke on him. Originally, he had been very ambitious, but he was first defeated by Jiang Tianlin, who was as famous as him after entering the Dharma stage. Then, he was defeated again by Lu Tianling, who had been weaker than him before entering the Dharma stage. As for Mei Tianqin, who had always been at odds with Lu Tianling in Jinling, after returning to Jinling, she first fought with Lu Tianling, and it seemed like they were evenly matched. After that, she was separated by the other Dharma adepts in Jinling. However, when the indignant Mei Tianqin heard about what had happened to Feng Shutao, she was instantly overjoyed. She immediately went up to Feng Shutao and fought him again. Unfortunately, Feng Shutao was burned by Mei Tianqin's 7-colored spirit fire and had no choice but to escape. In an instant, Feng Shutao became the laughingstock of the Dharma adepts in the North Sea training world. The famous North Sea twins of the past had actually fallen to such a state after entering the Dharma stage. Actually, Feng Shutao was not weak. Although he had only entered the Dharma stage for a short period of time, in Xianling's sect, other than a few mid-Dharma adepts, none of the early Dharma adepts were a match for him. Even among the early Dharma adepts of other sects, Feng Shutao's strength was rarely a match for him. Otherwise, Xianling's sect would not have allowed him to infiltrate the Central Plains and join forces with the other sects to open the Yingtian dojo. Unfortunately, the rising Jinling was clearly more fortunate than him. The 3 most outstanding adepts among the second generation of Jinling disciples were all extremely talented and had surpassed Feng Shutao in terms of strength. However, the 3 of them had chosen Feng Shutao to be their touchstone after entering the Dharma stage in a fit of pique. Hence, Feng Shutao's tragic fate was sealed. Feng Shutao wholeheartedly wanted to wash away the humiliation he had suffered from the 3 times he had lost. After inheriting the Dharma soul, how could Feng Shutao not know that Jiang Tianling's method was the safest and most beneficial method of inheriting the Dharma soul? However, he could not wait, and he did not want to wait any longer. Hence, he gave up on the method of inheriting the Dharma soul that might have helped him advance to the late Dharma stage in the future. Instead, he chose the most direct and violent method of inheriting the Dharma soul, but it was also the fastest way to increase his strength in a short period of time. In the depths of his heart, he wanted to compete with Jiang Tianlin, even if it was only a temporary victory. Dongwu Laozu saw that Feng Shutao had not spoken for a long time, so he said sternly, "Jiang Tianlin, that mid-sized spirit stone vein is in the Yingtian dojo, so it should belong to the sects of the North Sea. You, Jinling, are taking it all for yourself. Don't you think you're being too greedy?" "That's right." A muffled sound rang out, and another burly late-core forging cultivator from the Songhai sect who had been following behind Dongwu Laozu all this while said in a low, muffled voice, "I was the one who first discovered this spirit stone vein, so if we're talking about who should own it, it should belong to the Songhai sect." Dongwu Laozu's expression changed, and he was just about to turn around and scold him when Jiang Tianlin laughed coldly and said, "What a joke. Since the Songhai sect was the one who first discovered this spirit stone vein, why didn't you tell the other sects about it just now? I'm guessing that you've already decided to take it all for yourself. Now that our 3 sects have gotten here first, you're trying to say that all sects should own it. How can it be that easy? Mr. Dongwu, you're a senior cultivator of the North Sea world after all. Don't you think you're being too shameless by doing this?" Chapter 659. The Sanming Laozu and the Tongjian Laozu sects had a total of 40% of this spirit stone mine. If the North Sea sects divided this spirit stone mine, the Yujian and Chongming sects would definitely not be able to get such a share. Hence, the 2 of them looked at each other and said in unison, "That's right. Since this spirit stone mine has already been taken by Jinling, it belongs to Jinling. If the Songhai sect was the first to discover it, why didn't you move it? How could the Azure Sea sect be relocated? Old ancestor Donghua cursed loudly in his heart. How precious were abode magic treasures! The number of abode magic treasures possessed by each sect in the Northern Sea could be counted on one's fingers, and they were all used as places of inheritance. They couldn't be used easily, so how could they possibly allow cultivators to easily carry them around? Feng Shutao did not care about this. Now that his strength had improved greatly, all he wanted was to make things difficult for Jinling. Or rather, he wanted to use every possible way to get back at Jiang Tianlin for the humiliation he had suffered. Feng Shutao said coldly, "I don't care what the Songhai sect was thinking at the time, but now that the spirit stone mine is in your hands, Jiang Tianlin, it is impossible for you to take it for yourself. I think the North Sea sects will not let you, Jinling, have a second mid-sized spirit stone mine for yourself." Jiang Tianlin laughed coldly. "You, Feng Shutao, are trying to represent the North Sea sects? At least the Yujin sect and Chongming sect are not under your command. As for the others," Jiang Tianlin Laozu looked at the three Laozu from the Mistwater Pavilion, Haiyan sect, and Linggu sect, who were fighting in the distance and said mockingly, "I don't know what you, Feng Shutao, can do to stop the fight there." At this time, the space in the third palace had been completely destroyed by the battle between the three Laozu. Not only did the Mistwater Pavilion and Haiyan sect, the two traditional allies, turn against each other, but even the Dharma adepts of the Linggu sect were also trying to get a share of the spoils. Just as Feng Shutao and the others were reminded by Jiang Tianlin to look at the three people fighting, Donghua Laozu suddenly shouted, "Oh no!" He had already turned into a stream of light and rushed toward the battle. When everyone looked over again, they saw that perhaps because the three of them were fighting over the aspect soul and none of them were willing to let the other obtain it, the aspect soul finally lost control of itself under the impact of the battle between the three of them. In an instant, it broke away from the battle and flew in another direction. Donghua Laozu and Sanming Laozu were also fighting over the Dharma. Laozu and the Laozu. Sanming Laozu and Sanming Laozu. Laozu and the Laozu sect thought. Laozu and Sanming Lao, and Sa Ming Laozu and Ming, and Tianlin, and Laozu Tian finally lost. Laozu, Tongjian Laozu and Sanming Laozu were also very tempted to fight over the Dharma soul. However, Jiang Tianlin said, "These three people are fighting over the Dharma soul, but they didn't expect it to be taken away by someone else." Tongjian Laozu and Sanming Laozu were stunned. When they looked up, Zhang Shi had suddenly appeared in front of the Dharma soul. The Dharma soul crashed into Zhang Shi's chest and disappeared. "Brat, how dare you!" Among the three Laozu, the Mistwater Pavilion and the Haiyan sect's Laozu saw that the Dharma soul in their hands had flown away. They were furious and raised their hands to attack Zhang Shi. Although the Linggu sect's Laozu was also very displeased with Zhang Shi's method of taking advantage of the situation, his expression changed several times. In the end, he didn't attack Zhang Shi, but he also didn't help Zhang Shi because he was his ally. The moment the Dharma soul appeared, Zhang Shi stood still like a puppet with a broken string. He watched as the attacks of the two Laozu hit him, and Zhang Shi was about to turn into nothingness. At this moment, Donghua Laozu suddenly appeared in front of Zhang Shi. He pushed his hands forward, and two flying shuttles flew out from Donghua Laozu's palms. They suddenly turned into two ferocious wolves in midair, and they bit at the two Laozu's attacks. Boom, boom. Two loud sounds rang out in succession. The two wolves collapsed, and the two flying shuttles flew back. However, the attacks of the Mistwater Pavilion and the Haiyan sect's Laozu was also blocked by Donghua Laozu alone. Zhang Shi stood motionlessly behind Donghua Laozu. However, the aura around him became stronger and stronger, and the fluctuations of his aura became more and more obvious. He's going to break through to the Dharma manifestation stage. Feng Shutao followed closely behind. When he saw Zhang Shi's current situation, his expression changed, and he shouted loudly. Zhang Shi's cultivation level had already reached the peak of the core forging stage. Originally, with his cultivation level, the Azure Sea sect would definitely let him go into seclusion in peace, just like Liang Xianfeng, Chu Xuanqing, Spiritual Master Xuansu, and the others in Jinling, and they would definitely not let him take the risk in Yingtian Dojo. However, Zhang Shi had strongly requested to go to Yingtian Dojo, and the Azure Sea sect's Laozu Dojo had no choice but to let him come. Zhang Shi's status in the Azure Sea sect was special. It was even higher than Jiang Tianlin Laozu's status in Jinling before he had broken through to the Dharma stage. After all, when Jiang Tianlin Laozu Dojo was at the peak of the core forging stage, he was only the head of the 3 truths and 4 spirits. At least there were 6 other cultivators in Jinling, which made Jinling look more like a gathering of heroes. Zhang Shi, on the other hand, was at the top of the Zhanghai sect. Among the second-generation disciples of the Zhanghai sect, Zhang Shi felt lonely at the top. This was also why when Zhang Shi proposed to come to the Yingtian Dojo, not only did no one from the second generation compete with him, even the Dharma adepts of the Zhanghai sect could only let him be. Zhang Shi's level of cultivation was already one step away from breaking through to the Dharma stage. After he obtained the Dharma Power Soul, the huge and pure inner yuan contained within it was quickly refined by Zhang Shi. Just as Donghua Laozu was trying to stop the 2 Dharma adepts, Zhang Shi had refined a small portion of the pure inner yuan, allowing Zhang Shi's level of cultivation to begin the final push towards the Dharma stage. Feng Shutao had originally wanted to take advantage of the situation, but he did not expect to run into this situation. Zhang Shi was strong and powerful. Among the late core forging adepts, he was one of the few who could catch up to him and Jiang Tianlin. Now that the Zhanghai sect was about to gain another Dharma adept, he thought about how Jinling's sect had been suppressing Xianling's sect all these years, and how the merged Zhanghai sect had also begun to challenge Xianling's sect's position in the North Sea. How could Feng Shutao allow the Zhanghai sect to gain another Dharma adept to narrow the gap between the 2 sects? Feng Shutao shouted angrily. As he reminded the 2 Laozu of the Shuiyan Pavilion and the Haiyan sect, he had already thrown a treasure in his hand at Zhang Shi, who was behind Donghua Laozu. Obviously, he wanted to interrupt Zhang Shi's advancement process. Despicable Feng Shutao, the old man will never forgive you. Donghua Laozu shouted angrily. He hurriedly sent out a wave of qi to deflect Feng Shutao's treasure. At the same time, a pair of flying shuttles once again blocked the attacks of the 2 Laozu from the Shuiyan Pavilion and the Haiyan sect. After all, Donghua Laozu did not have the strength that Jiang Tianlin Laozu could fight against 3 people at once. Even though he was also at the peak of the early Dharma stage, he was still overwhelmed by the attacks of the 3. Brother Lingyun, please help the old man. Donghua Laozu had no choice but to plead with the Linggu sect's Laozu. The Linggu sect had just left Xianling sect's camp and joined the newly risen Zhanghai sect. Although Zhang Shi's previous actions had infuriated Lingyun Laozu, the 2 sects were still allies. Moreover, the Linggu sect had already left Xianling sect's camp once. If they were to fall out with the Zhanghai sect again, then the Linggu sect would no longer have a place to stand in the North Sea training world. No sect would be willing to accept an ally that constantly changed sides. Lingyun Laozu sighed to himself as he used the spirit-nurturing treasure in his hands to block the Dharma adepts from the Feiyu sect who were rushing over to help Feng Shutao. At the same time, a muffled groan came from behind Lingyun Laozu. Donghua Laozu was finally unable to contain the injuries in his body under the attacks of the 3 Dharma adepts, and he spat out a mouthful of blood. Originally, with Donghua Laozu's abilities, even if he was surrounded by 3 people, he should not have been defeated so quickly. However, Zhang Shi was standing there like a target, not moving at all. Donghua Laozu had no choice but to bite the bullet and continue to fight the 3 people head-on so that the hope of his sect's rise to power would not be destroyed just like that. At this time, Jinling and the others had become the ones watching the show. Although Donghua Laozu was fighting left and right, he still kept a part of his attention on Jinling and the other 2 sects in the distance. Donghua Laozu knew that before Zhang Shi woke up, Jinling was already the key to the Songhai sect's success in this trip to the Yingtian dojo, even if this hope was extremely slim. Feng Shutao struck out with his palm and once again caused Donghua Laozu to spit out a mouthful of blood. However, Donghua Laozu still stood in front of Zhang Shi to protect him. Feng Shutao shouted angrily, "Donghua, do you really want to die?" Donghua Laozu spat out a mouthful of blood and spat at Feng Shutao. He said viciously, "At most, we will perish together." The old man does not believe that after the old man self-destructs his core space, the Yingtian dojo will still be able to exist in this crack in space. Donghua Laozu's face was filled with viciousness, and this caused the expressions of Feng Shutao and the others to change. Their attacks became less vicious, and it was obvious that they had been restrained by Donghua Laozu's desperation. If a Dharma adept self-destructed his core space, there was no guarantee that the dozens of late core forging adepts in the dojo would be able to survive. Even if the space around the dojo was destroyed, it was hard to say how many of the Dharma adepts would be able to survive the turbulence in space. Just as everyone was hesitating to attack Zhang Shi, the previously unstable aura around Zhang Shi suddenly changed, and a deep and vigorous life force radiated from his body. The expressions of Feng Shutao, the three Dharma adepts from the Shuiyan Pavilion, and the Haiyan sect all changed, and the three of them actually launched their final attack in Zhang Shi's direction at the same time. Donghua Laozu's expression changed drastically. He would not be able to block this attack. Chapter 660. A leaf seemed to drift along with the wind. Right when the Donghua forefather was feeling despair, this leaf suddenly seemed to have been lifted up by the aftershocks of the battle between the four of them, and it blocked Feng Shutao's path of attack. Jiang Tianlin, what is the meaning of this? Feng Shutao's expression turned cold when he saw this leaf. He was very familiar with this leaf. It was one of the personal treasures of his nemesis, Jiang Tianlin. The leaf fluttered and undulated in Feng Shutao's god art as if it was extremely weak. Even so, the leaf still dissolved most of the power of Feng Shutao's god art as it fluttered. With Jiang Tianlin's strength, it was naturally impossible for him to only block half of the power of Feng Shutao's spell. Jiang Tianlin's plan was to not kill Donghua, but to not let him have it easy either. Jiang Tianlin's plan naturally did not escape the eyes of all the Dharma adepts present. However, they could not say much about it. At most, they would just say that Jiang Tianlin had attacked in a hurry and could not use his full strength. On the contrary, Jiang Tianlin had attacked in the end. Donghua Laozu still owed Jiang Tianlin a huge favor for this. Brother Feng, you have to take a closer look. I'm sure you're more familiar with the might of the seven-colored restriction in the central palace than I am. Do you think that if Mr. Donghua and fellow Daoist Zhang were to perish, with our strength, what do you think our chances of breaking the restriction are? Jiang Tianlin's words were directed at Feng Shutao, but they were also directed at the Dharma adepts of the Shuiyan Pavilion and the Haiyan sect. Indeed, after hearing Jiang Tianlin's words, the attacks of the other two Laozu weakened. At this moment, a clear cracking sound suddenly came from Zhang Shi's body. He had broken his core and formed his Dharma. A surge of spiritual qi surged from all over Zhang Shi's body, especially from his chest. The spiritual qi gathered above his head and gradually formed a half-sized elephant with a long trunk. The elephant raised its trunk and gave a loud roar. The cold wind swept in all directions, and a faint pressure grew from nothing, from weak to strong. This was the blood pressure that only a Dharma adept could possess. Before Donghua Laozu could rejoice, the attacks of the Ocean Flame sect, Water Mist Pavilion, and Feng Shutao had already arrived before Donghua Laozu. Zhang Shi suddenly opened his eyes. The Dharma idol that had just materialized above his head lifted its two front legs and stomped on Feng Shutao's attack. A strange vibration came from the feet of the Dharma idol, as if waves of space waves were stirred up, dissolving Feng Shutao's attack. Feng Shutao's expression changed, and he snorted heavily. In the end, he did not attack again. This was because he could tell that although Zhang Shi had just become a Dharma adept and was not at a stable level, with the help of the Dharma Power Soul, his level of training was not as simple as someone who had just broken through to the early Dharma stage. Furthermore, what Jiang Tianlin had said earlier was the truth. For the sake of the central palace, Feng Shutao had no choice but to temporarily give up on suppressing Dongguo Laozu. Furthermore, even though Feng Shutao's attack had been dispelled by Jiang Tianlin and Zhang Shi, the combined attacks of the Water Mist Pavilion and the Ocean Flame Sect's Laozu still inflicted more injuries on Dongguo Laozu. When Dongguo Laozu's two flying treasures were attacked by the two, one of the flying treasures was broken into two. The destruction of his natal treasures caused Dongguo Laozu's mental state to be severely injured. Blood flowed from his mouth as he glared viciously at the two Laozu from the Water Mist Pavilion and the Ocean Flame Sect. The destruction of his natal treasures had caused Dongguo Laozu's strength to be greatly reduced. However, more importantly, Dongguo Laozu had initiated the tribulation of the early Dharma stage, and his dream of advancing to the mid-Dharma stage would probably be pushed back by several decades. Destroying one's foundation was tantamount to killing one's parents. However, Dongguo Laozu forcefully swallowed his anger. The situation before him was very clear. Although he had been severely injured, he still had the strength of a Dharma stage cultivator. At this moment, Zhang Shi had temporarily advanced to the Dharma stage, and coupled with the Linggu sect's Lingyun Laozu, there was no one else in this dojo who had the strength to win against them other than Jinling. Furthermore, the cultivators of the various sects would definitely not fight amongst themselves for the sake of the central palace. Jiang Tianlin was the first to laugh and say, "Everyone, this is not the time for us to fight amongst ourselves. The largest and most important central palace in this Yingtian dojo has yet to be opened. If we were to fight here, then we would have entered a treasure trove and come out with some useless treasures. Although they might be of some value, in reality, it would not be worth it." At this moment, in the Yingtian dojo, regardless of the power of the sects behind them or the strength of the cultivators present, Jiang Tianlin was undoubtedly the best person to unite the forces of the various sects and open the central palace. At this moment, Jiang Tianlin seemed to be unwilling to pass on this responsibility. Although Jiang Tianlin and Laozu's few words were unable to resolve the tense situation, the cultivators of the various sects did not continue to provoke them. Instead, most of them began to listen attentively to Jiang Tianlin's words. This result was rather satisfactory to Jiang Tianlin. He continued to say, "Just now, I have already asked my sect's formation grandmaster, junior sister Xian Chen, and found out that the light screen of this central palace is not only the key to protecting the entire Yingtian dojo, but there is also a large spirit vein beneath this central palace that is used to support the operation of the formations and restrictions of the entire dojo. This also means that the light screen formed by the 749 colored restrictions has already greatly exceeded the original level of protection." As Jiang Tianlin said this, he paused for a moment. Indeed, he saw that the various sects Laozu had begun to ask their own formation grandmasters or formation masters. After receiving the same opinion as perfected Xianchen, the expressions on the faces of all the Laozus turned serious. It was obvious that they also agreed with what Jiang Tianlin and Laozu had just said. Ancestor Jiang Tianlin smiled and said, "Therefore, if everyone does not join forces now, I think this trip to the Yingtian dojo will end here. However, don't forget that although we have set up a large concealment formation outside the Yingtian dojo, we have to break through the restrictions along the way. With 9 Dharma adepts and more than 10 late core forging adepts working together, the formation outside the dojo will not be able to conceal us. If we leave now, the cultivators from the other central sects will definitely gather here after hearing the news. At that time, there will be nothing left for us to do." Feng Shutao snorted coldly and said, "Jiang Tianlin, you don't have to provoke us. We can all see this clearly. However, the crux of the problem is that this last palace was attacked by the 9 sects together. Once we break through the light screen, how are the treasures inside going to be divided?" Although Dongguo Laozu had destroyed one of his natal treasures, he still had the abilities of a Dharma adept. When he heard this, he smiled coldly at Feng Shutao and said, "Do you even need to ask? Of course, we will rely on our own abilities and our own opportunities." Although the Songhai sect had almost become the target of public criticism just now, after Zhang Shi had advanced to the Dharma stage, the Songhai sect suddenly had 2 Dharma adepts, causing their strength to surpass that of the other 7 sections. If it wasn't for the fact that Jiang Tianlin had fought 1 against 3 and severely injured Patriarch Long River last night, causing the Donghua Patriarch to be fearful, the Donghua Patriarch might have even challenged the Zhenling sect's authority in the dojo. As soon as Donghua Laozu's words left his mouth, he was met with opposition from the various sects, especially from the various sects who had participated in the attack on the Songhai sect. The crowd was in an uproar, but in the end, they still had no idea what to do. Jiang Tianlin stood in the center and smiled slightly. He watched as the various sects insisted on their own opinions and fought for the benefits of their respective sections. Donghua Laozu's face was dark. Now, the various sects were obviously very wary of the Songhai sect suddenly having 2 Dharma adepts. From their words, it seemed like they wanted to impose restrictions on the Songhai sect. This made Donghua Laozu very angry, but there was nothing he could do. He inadvertently saw that Jiang Tianlin seemed to have a card up his sleeve as he stood at the side, and his heart jolted slightly. No matter how Jiang Tianlin had weakened Feng Shutao's attack just now, the old ancestor Donghua owed Jiang Tianlin a favor. Even though the old ancestor Donghua felt that Jiang Tianlin had an ulterior motive in helping him, the old ancestor Donghua had to repay this favor. Does martial nephew Jiang have any other opinions? Donghua Laozu asked loudly, causing the cultivators of the various sects to fall silent. Jiang Tianlin smiled faintly, as if he had already expected this. He chuckled lightly and said, I can't say that I have any opinions, but I do have some opinions. If there's anything wrong with what I say, I hope that the various elders and friends here can correct me. Donghua Laozu had just swallowed the spirit pill passed down by the Songhai sect, and his complexion was much better than before. It could be seen that the various sects valued the rewards from this trip to the Yingtian dojo very much. Many spirit pills and medicines had already been prepared in advance. This was also the most important reason why the various sects were able to calm down even when the battle was about to break out. After paying such a heavy price, this trip to the Yingtian dojo definitely could not end on a strong note. Donghua Laozu smiled and said, Martial nephew Jiang, feel free to speak your mind. The various sects Laozu cursed inwardly, since when did your Songhai sect become so close to Zhenling? However, the 2 of them were echoing each other, and it was indeed enough to make the various sects Laozu wary. None of them dared to interrupt them. Jiang Tianlin Laozu pondered for a moment before saying solemnly, This central palace is a grotto heaven artifact. I believe that everyone has already noticed the clues. The various sects Laozu all nodded. Jiang Tianlin Laozu then continued, In that case, after the restriction is broken, there should be a portion of the treasures in the palace that will rush out due to the sudden opening of the grotto heaven. In my opinion, this portion of the treasures can be sealed first, and then the order of selection will be determined based on the contribution each sect made during the process of breaking the restriction. What do you all think? The various sects Laozu were a little confused. At this moment, Zhang Shi suddenly asked, Brother Jiang, can you explain further? For example, how will Brother Jiang determine the contribution each sect made during the process of breaking the restriction? Zhang Shi's words were exactly what the various sects Laozu were thinking. For a moment, everyone fell silent again as they waited for Jiang Tianlin's explanation. That's easy. I believe that all of you still have some trump cards up your sleeves, so there's no need to hide them anymore. Out of the 49 colored restrictions, the sect that destroyed the most will have the right to choose first. What do you all think? At the end of the day, it still depends on the strength of each sect. The more powerful the sect, the more restrictions they will destroy. Feng Shutao's expression was very unhappy. He knew that this way, even if his strength had increased greatly, he might not be able to compete with the Songhai sect and Jiang Tianlin, who had 2 Dharma adepts. Furthermore, the combined strength of Zhenling's 4 late-core forging adepts could not be underestimated. It is to use strength to overcome order. do you have a better idea, Brother Feng? Jiang Tianlin asked. Chapter 661. Jiang Tianlin's question made Feng Shuzhao speechless. The cultivation world still believed in strength. Whether the change in the Songhai sect was intentional or not, the fact that there were 2 Dharma adepts in the Songhai sect forced the sects to accept this result. Moreover, the fact that there were 2 Laozu adepts in the Songhai sect was the most affected. Jinling, who was originally the strongest, was the one who suffered the most. Now that Jiang Tianlin didn't say anything, what else could the others say? After the other restriction areas were destroyed, not only did the 7-colored restriction light curtain not weaken, it became even more tenacious. It seemed that after the other restriction areas were destroyed, whether it was the power of the Yingtian Dojo's formation or the large spirit vein in the central palace, all of them could concentrate all their power on the 49 restrictions, causing the surface of the light curtain formed by the 7-colored restriction to radiate with spiritual light that soared into the sky. In the face of such a powerful restriction, the only 3 formation grandmasters and 2 formation grandmasters could only work together to set up a formation that could weaken the restriction. At this moment, perfected Master Qian Daofeng of the Xianling sect suddenly said, "Since it's based on contribution, what should we do for those who practice formations?" Although Qian Daofeng was only in the late core forging stage, he was a first-generation disciple of the Xianling sect. His seniority was higher than Jiang Tianlin, Feng Shuzhao, and the others. His status as a formation master also meant that his status was not lower than that of a normal Dharma adept. Jiang Tianlin Laozu smiled and said, "The contribution of a formation master is half that of a formation master. What do you think, Senior Daofeng?" Although Qian Daofeng was a little dissatisfied and thought that the contribution of a formation master should be higher, he remembered that perfected Master Xianchen was a formation master himself. He couldn't say anything about Jiang Tianlin's decision. Only Donghua Laozu and Zhang Shi were a little displeased. The Songhai sect didn't have any outstanding talents in the field of formations. However, even though the 2 of them felt extremely uncomfortable in their hearts, there was nothing they could do. They could only blame the Azure Sea sect's imperfect inheritance. A sect that ranked in the top 3 in the cultivation world of the North Sea actually didn't even have a single formation grandmaster. Who else could they blame? Ever since Lu Ping had become a grandmaster alchemist, his alchemy skills had improved tremendously. Previously, he had used the spirit demon peach to refine a half-step Dharma elixir, and now he had successfully upgraded it to a Dharma elixir that could restore his inner yuan. Jiang Tianlin and Laozu had originally used up a large amount of inner yuan to relocate the mid-sized spirit mine, but with the powerful effects of the tracing spirit elixir that Lu Ping had given him, his strength had now mostly recovered. This was also the main reason why Jiang Tianlin was still able to maintain his composure and control the situation despite the appearance of 2 Dharma adepts in the Blue Sea sect. Naturally, Donghua Laozu and Zhang Shi had already noticed Jiang Tianlin's calm demeanor. Although the 2 of them didn't know what Jiang Tianlin was relying on, they had already made up their minds to firmly control the first round of the selection of treasures. Although Zhang Shi had broken through to the Dharma stage with the help of the Dharma Power Soul, and his strength and level of training far surpassed those adepts who had just broken through to the early Dharma stage, he knew that his stage was still not stable yet. Although he now had the strength of a Dharma adept, if he were to engage in prolonged battles with others, it would definitely affect the stability of his Dharma stage. Every time a core forging adept achieved a breakthrough to a stage, it would take at least 2 to 3 years of seclusion to stabilize it. As for Dharma adepts, after breaking through to the Dharma stage, they would usually need to go into seclusion for an even longer period of time, unless they had some miraculous elixir that could stabilize the stage that they had just broken through to and shorten the time taken to stabilize it. Lu Ping watched as Zhang Shi swallowed a different type of elixir for the 3rd time. Previously, after Zhang Shi had repelled Feng Shudao's attack, he couldn't care less about helping Donghua Laozu again. Instead, he had hurriedly swallowed a type of elixir. After that, when Jiang Tianlin and Laozu had gathered the strength of the various sects and were preparing to work together to break through the restrictions of the central palace, Zhang Shi had swallowed another type of elixir. This was the third time, and it was the same type of elixir. However, as an alchemy grandmaster, Lu Ping could clearly see that these three elixirs were all used to stabilize the stage of the Dharma stage. Elixirs that could stabilize the stage of the Dharma stage were extremely rare, and Jinling only had two types of elixir formulas that could be used to stabilize the stage of the Dharma stage. However, Zhang Shi had three types of elixirs that could be used to stabilize the stage of the Dharma stage. This piqued Lu Ping's interest. Not only did the Songhai sect have an additional elixir formula that could be used to stabilize the stage of the Dharma stage, but more importantly, Zhang Shi had brought these elixirs with him everywhere he went. Thinking about how Zhang Shi was only one step away from the Dharma stage, but he didn't stay in that Songhai sect and go into seclusion to break through to the Dharma stage. Could it be that Zhang Shi had already predicted that he would break through in the Yingtian dojo and had made preparations beforehand? He thought about how the Dharma soul that had been fought over by the three Dharma stage cultivators had suddenly flown away, and how Zhang Shi had coincidentally appeared on the path that the Dharma soul had taken, causing the Dharma soul to crash directly into Zhang Shi's core space. All of this made Lu Ping suspect that Zhang Shi had already planned to use the Dharma soul in advance, and that he had taken three elixirs that were prepared to stabilize the stage in advance. This meant that Zhang Shi had already predicted the existence of the Dharma soul in the Yingtian dojo before he entered. Thinking about how Laozu had stayed in the Songhai sect for decades, it seemed that the Songhai sect had really dug out a lot of information about the Yingtian dojo from him. At this moment, Qian Daofeng, who was setting up the matrix in front, walked over with a gloomy face. He said, "I'm afraid the defensive ability of this light curtain is much higher than what we had estimated. With the abilities of us three matrix masters, and the help of two others, the matrix that we set up is unable to weaken the restriction at all." When everyone heard this, their faces turned ugly. Without the weakening effect of the matrix, it would be even more difficult for them to break the restriction. Bronze Sword Laozu was anxious. After hearing Qian Daofeng's words, he slashed at the light curtain with his sword. Under everyone's shocked eyes, Bronze Sword Laozu's sword was directly broken by a roaming rainbow restriction. It was important to know that the Jade Sword sect was the only pure swordsman sect in the North Sea, and Bronze Sword Laozu's abilities in the sect were second only to Jade Sword Laozu, who was at the mid-Dharma stage of the Jade Sword sect. Swordsmen had always been famous in the world of cultivation for their offensive and destructive abilities. Bronze Sword Laozu's sword was so powerful that among all the Laozu present, other than Jiang Tianlin, Donghua, and Feng Shudao, no one would dare to take it head-on. However, such a powerful sword could not even destroy one of the roaming 49 rainbow restrictions. Seeing that the most important central palace of the Yingtian dojo was right in front of them, but no one had the ability to break it, Feng Shudao was also a little anxious. He said, "Uncle Master, is there really no other way?" Qian Daofeng pondered deeply for a moment and said, "It's not that there's no way. I discussed it for a moment with the other two earlier. If all of you join forces and are able to annihilate one of the 7 different colored restrictions in one go, then we can seize the opportunity to completely activate the formation that's weakening it. In this way, we can further weaken the restrictions." Donghua Laozu said unhappily, "If we can destroy the different rainbow restrictions in one go, why would we still need to weaken the formation?" Donghua Laozu's tone made Qian Daofeng very angry. However, Donghua Laozu was right, and so he said angrily, "All of you only have one chance to attack. Otherwise, the entire restriction will quickly recover. Even in such a situation, you Dharma adepts can't do anything about it. Formation masters like us are weak, so there's nothing much to say." After saying that, he actually turned around and left, leaving the 10 Dharma adepts behind to look at each other. "Why don't we join forces and give it a try?" Shuiyan Pavilion's Laozu suggested. However, even she herself could not tell from her tone that she was very confident. Perfected Xianchen, who had just walked up to Jiang Tianlin and Laozu and was discussing something with him, said, "It's no use. The last restriction is far stronger than we had expected. Based on the current situation, there should be a palace spirit at the core of the formation in the central palace. Palace spirit? What is that? A high-grade heaven-level spirit item? Shuiyan Pavilion's Laozu had also confirmed part of perfected Xuanzhen's words with the other formation master from his own sect. However, he had never heard of the palace spirit. Perfected Xianzhen hesitated for a moment and said, I don't know what it is exactly, but a heaven-level spirit item can indeed be used as a palace spirit. With the existence of a palace spirit, regardless of whether it is a restriction or a formation, the power of it will increase significantly. When Lu Ping heard the term palace spirit, he felt that it was very familiar. After thinking for a moment, he then remembered that when he had entered the Yingtian dojo, he had obtained a copy of the Yingtian sect's inheritance, which had mentioned the palace spirit. It was just that at that time, Lu Ping had only roughly flipped through it. He was not proficient in formations, so he did not remember much about the essence of the book. When perfected Xianzhen had obtained the copy of the book from Lu Ping, it had been as if he had obtained a treasure. He had flipped through it overnight and found the records about the palace spirit. Actually, there were still some things that perfected Xianzhen had not mentioned just now. Not only could a heaven-level spirit item be used as a palace spirit, but the Dharma idol's soul in the 3 small palaces of the 6-colored restriction was also a kind of palace spirit. Just when everyone was at their wits' end, Jiang Tianlin Laozu had obtained quite a bit of information from perfected Xianzhen. He chuckled and said, actually, it is not impossible to destroy the entire 6-colored restriction in one strike. Tong Jian Laozu's eyes lit up and said, you have a way. Hurry up and say it. Jiang Tianlin Laozu nodded slightly. Just as he was about to say something, Donghua Laozu beat him to it and said in a deep voice, state your conditions. Chapter 662. Donghua Laozu seemed to have already guessed Jiang Tianlin's next move, so he took the initiative to ask, state your conditions. Jiang Tianlin didn't mind. He slowly took out a purple wooden box from his storage artifact. There were several spirit sealing talismans sealed on it. From these spirit sealing talismans, it could be seen that the item inside the box should be extremely precious. This caused the previously doubtful cultivators to become more solemn. Jiang Tianlin Laozu brushed away the spirit sealing talismans on the box, then opened it, and the item inside was immediately revealed to everyone. This is, Restriction Breaking Talisman, it's 7-colored. Zhenling actually has a 7-colored Restriction Breaking Talisman. In the purple wooden box, there was a talisman shining with 7-colored light. It was the 7-colored Restriction Breaking Talisman that Lu Ping had given to Jiang Tianlin Laozu. Jiang Tianlin Laozu had kept it, but he didn't use it until the last moment, when he needed it the most. He finally showed it to the cultivators of the various sects. The appearance of the 7-colored restriction-breaking talisman caused the cultivators of the various sects to suck in a breath of cold air. The expressions of the other Transcendence Realm cultivators changed. The 7-colored restriction-breaking talisman was the most powerful type of talisman passed down by the 7th Patriarch of the Heaven-Splitting Talisman. It was also the talisman with the lowest success rate in making. Every 7-colored restriction-breaking talisman was extremely rare in the cultivation world. The Sea Flame sect's Transcendence Laozu looked at the 7-colored restriction-breaking talisman in Jiang Tianlin's hand with a complicated expression. He said, I didn't expect your sect to have the complete inheritance of the 7-colored restriction-breaking talisman. This talisman must be the masterpiece of your sect's Taoist Tian Shui. Jiang Tianlin Laozu smiled lightly and said, Senior, you worry too much. This 7-colored restriction-breaking talisman is something that our sect obtained by chance. We don't have the complete inheritance of the 7-colored restriction-breaking talisman. At most, we only have the 5-colored restriction-breaking talisman. Jiang Tianlin Laozu's words made many of the cultivators present calm down. Thinking about it, it made sense. It was said that even the Crystal Palace didn't have the complete inheritance of the 7-colored restriction-breaking talisman. In the past, the Crystal Palace had paid a huge price to obtain the complete inheritance of the 5-colored restriction-breaking talisman from the 5 Mountains Wuxing School, which was also a giant sect in the Central Plains, but they were rejected by the Five Mountains Wuxing School. However, what everyone didn't know was that Jinling's sect didn't have the complete inheritance of the seven-colored restriction-breaking talisman. However, the part of the seven-colored restriction-breaking talisman that Lu Ping had obtained from the Yingtian dojo just so happened to complete Jinling's inheritance of the restriction-breaking talisman. In other words, if Jiang Tianlin and the others escaped from the Yingtian dojo unscathed, Jinling would have the complete inheritance of the seven-colored restriction-breaking talisman that even the Crystal Palace didn't have. The seven-colored restriction-breaking talisman was extremely important. Apart from the fact that the Crystal Palace couldn't obtain it, the fact that the Yingtian sect had the complete inheritance of the seven-colored restriction-breaking talisman but had kept it a secret showed how important it was. Even a large sect like the Yingtian sect was so secretive about the seven-colored restriction-breaking talisman that they did not dare to disclose. Naturally, Jinling's sect would never admit that they had obtained the complete inheritance of the seven-colored restriction-breaking talisman. Jiang Tianlin Laozu glanced at the surrounding Laozu and said, "With this talisman in hand, I believe that everyone should believe that we can easily break a seven-colored restriction-breaking talisman with one strike. However, I don't need to say much about how precious this talisman is. Our sect only obtained it by chance. If this central palace was really important, I would never have taken it out." Feng Shutao said impatiently, "Jiang Tianlin, stop talking nonsense. Just state your conditions. I just hope that you won't ask for too much." Jiang Tianlin Laozu didn't mind. He continued to smile and said, "That's fine. Our sect's request isn't too much. After we break the restriction-breaking talisman of the Central Palace, our sect will be allowed to choose 3 treasures. Furthermore, we will have the right to choose the first round." "What? 3? That's impossible. Jinling's appetite is too big. Although a restriction-breaking talisman is precious, it's unreasonable for him to ask for 3. That's right. Jinling wants the right to choose the first round. How is that possible? Doesn't that mean that the best 4 treasures will be taken by Jinling? A man who is never content is like a snake trying to swallow an elephant. What if only 4 treasures fly out after the restriction-breaking talisman of the Central Palace is broken? Or perhaps only 4 of the treasures are spirit-nurturing treasures or heaven-ranked spirit treasures, while the rest are just scrap metal? What should we do?" Jiang Tianlin Laozu didn't take the displeasure of the cultivators of the various sects to heart. He just stood there calmly and waited for everyone to calm down from their frenzy. Meanwhile, Dongguo Laozu spoke with a serious expression, "Martial nephew Jiang, even though the seven-colored restriction-breaking talisman is precious, it's only because it's rare and not because it's difficult to craft. Jinling wants to take the best 4 treasures in one go? That's quite unreasonable. It was time to haggle." "Oh." Jiang Tianlin smiled. "What do you think, Mr. Dongguo?" Dongguo Laozu fell silent for a moment, and he seemed to be discussing something with the other Laozus around him. 1. We believe that after martial nephew Jiang breaks the restriction, you can choose one of the treasures that spill out, and we'll give the right to choose the first round to Jinling. That way, Jinling will have the right to choose 2 of the best treasures. What do you think, martial nephew Jiang?" Jiang Tianlin's expression darkened, and he pondered for a moment before replying with a serious expression, 2. Jinling must choose 2 treasures first, and the seven-colored restriction-breaking talisman is also worth 2. Furthermore, there's no need to give the right to choose the first round. I, Jinling, will fight for it." Dongguo Laozu was stunned, and he said, "Martial nephew Jiang, how heroic of you. Are you confident that your sect will be able to destroy the most restrictions?" Jiang Tianlin smiled and remained silent. Dongguo Laozu glanced at the other Laozus around him and said, "All right, it's a deal." Jiang Tianlin held the seven-colored restriction-breaking talisman in his hand, and it slowly rose into the air before transforming into a ray of rainbow light that swept down towards the restrictions outside the palace. A series of explosions rang out, and under the repeated scouring of the rainbow light, colorful restrictions exploded into spirit flowers one after another. Perfected Qian Daofeng was indeed the #1 formation master in the North Sea. He saw the opportunity when the 7-colored restriction-breaking talisman was about to attack the light screen, and he suddenly shouted, "Now!" Just as the power of the restriction-breaking talisman reached its peak, and there was still some energy left to maintain the 7-colored restrictions that had been dispelled and could not recover under the support of the protective formation, the weakening formation that had been set up by the 3 formation masters and 2 formation masters immediately activated. 4 of the restrictions that had already been weakened by the restriction-breaking talisman were destroyed once again. The original purpose of the weakening formation was not only to destroy the restrictions, but more importantly, it was to suppress the self-recovery of the light screen, even though the effect of the suppression was not very obvious to Lu Ping. After the weakening formation was activated, there was no need for anyone else to say anything. All of the cultivators in the Dao Plaza attacked the remaining 35 rainbow restrictions with all their might. In an instant, the restrictions surrounding the central palace were blasted by the attacks of several tens of cultivators, causing light to shine in all directions. The defensive power of the 7-colored restrictions was indeed worthy of its reputation. 2 Dharma adepts from the Songhai sect and a late core forging adept joined forces and destroyed 2 of the restrictions in the first 3 attacks. When Dongwu Laozu looked to the side, he saw that Jiang Tianlin Laozu alone had destroyed 2 restrictions with just 2 attacks. Dongwu Laozu's expression was a little ugly. Although Jiang Tianlin's speed was not as fast as that of the Songhai sect, one must not forget that Jiang Tianlin Laozu was alone. Lu Ping himself felt a little depressed. This was because in the process of this competition, Lu Ping's own strength could not be used to its fullest. Although the power of the 12 Genshin's natal formation was strong, Lu Ping had always been unwilling to reveal his natal Dharma treasure in front of others. The Chonglu sword was a spirit cultivation level Dharma treasure that had refined 8 treasures, but if Lu Ping revealed it now, Dongwu Laozu and the others would immediately fight him to the death. As for the 7 treasures Thunder Calabash, Lu Ping could only use its lightning power, but he had never revealed it in front of others. This way, the 7 treasures Thunder Calabash could only use 70% of its original power. Lu Ping still had 3 spirit cultivation level Dharma treasures on him, but whether it was the ocean crossing boat, the Cloud Glow 5 Elements robe, or the 8 Views tower that he had just subdued, they were not good weapons for attacking. With no other choice, Lu Ping could only use the Golden Scale Sword, the Landslide, and the Aqua Nether Sword, as well as the weakened lightning power, to join forces with Perfected Xian Sen and Perfected Xian Su to attack the restrictive barrier. In the first 3 attacks, the 3 of them managed to destroy 1 colorful barrier. This allowed Jinling to surpass the Songhai sect, which had 2 Dharma powers and Laozu, and temporarily occupy the first place. However, Dongwu Laozu did not seem to be in a hurry. Compared to core forging adepts, a very important advantage for Dharma adepts was that Dharma adepts could sustain their strongest attacks for a very long time. On the other hand, for late core forging adepts, the power of their combined attacks might not be any weaker than that of a Dharma adept in the first 3 attacks. However, as time went on, they would not be able to keep up. Hence, this was the best time for the Songhai sect to surpass Xinling. After Feng Shutao inherited the Dharma soul, although he had used the power of the Dharma soul to push his own cultivation level to the peak of the early Dharma stage, when he joined forces with another late core forging adept, Lu Shuheng, he did not manage to destroy 2 colorful barriers like the Songhai sect did. Naturally, there was no way he could compare to Xinling. However, his current progress was enough to place him in the 3rd place. Furthermore, Xian Ling's sect still had a formation grandmaster who had not been counted. After the sects completed the first 3 attacks, in order not to give the restrictive barrier any time to recover, they immediately continued to attack. However, at this time, other than Laozu, who could still maintain the power of their attacks, the rest of the core forging adepts could no longer match the power of the first 3 attacks. In this way, the North Sea sect's time to destroy the restrictive barrier was undoubtedly delayed. Chapter 663. However, after a short while, not only Donghua Laozu, but Laozu from the other sects also quickly discovered that among the late core forging adepts, there was another person who not only maintained the same rhythm as the previous 3 attacks, but as the attacks continued, the power of this person's attacks gradually increased. How could this be possible? Lu Ping did not know that his performance had already been observed by all the Laozu. He was only focusing all his attention on attacking the seal in front of him. Lu Ping's inner yuan was already extraordinary from the start, and it was enough to support him to continuously use high explosive attacks. Coupled with the fact that the golden scale sword and other treasured weapons were unable to unleash their full potential, Lu Ping was unable to unleash his full potential right from the start. However, in the eyes of the others, what they saw was Lu Ping's double attacks that were filled with treasured weapons and remarkable powers. When Lu Ping observed Celestial Laozu's process of overcoming the tribulation of the mid-Dharma stage, he had once gained some enlightenment from the lightning galaxy and finally upgraded the Great River Flowing East sword technique to the level of a great remarkable power. This time, when Lu Ping used this sword technique, it was accompanied by the lightning power of the 7 treasures Thunder Calabash. This reminded Lu Ping of the time when Celestial Laozu was fighting in the lightning galaxy. The lightning galaxy used lightning to transform into water, but Lu Ping's Great River Flowing East sword technique used swords to transform into water. This was different in nature. However, when Lu Ping used the purple lightning of the 7 treasures Thunder Calabash to attack it, he had an idea. If the two were to be combined and the sword light formed from the Great River Flowing East sword technique carried the lightning of the 7 treasures Thunder Calabash, wouldn't it be the same as the lightning galaxy that Celestial Laozu encountered when he was undergoing tribulation? Of course, the 7 treasures lightning gourd and the Great River Flows East had fused together. Even if the power of the 7 treasures lightning gourd had increased greatly, it still couldn't compare to the true lightning galaxy. However, its power was still far above that of an ordinary Great River Flows East. From the very beginning, Lu Ping had been trying to combine these 2 great divine powers into one. However, he was unable to do so. As Lu Ping continued to try, the power of the 2 great divine powers gradually began to stack, and the effect of the attack also became more and more obvious. From the beginning, when Lu Ping attacked with his 3 magic treasures and lightning divine art, his power was only slightly stronger than Daoist Xian Sun or Daoist Xian Su. As Lu Ping gradually merged the 7 treasures Thunder Calabash's lightning power with the Great River Flows East sword skill, the power of the 7 treasures Thunder Calabash's 7 treasures Thunder Calabash S Great River Flows East sword skill gradually surpassed the combined power of the lightning and sword skills. This newly formed divine art still hadn't broken away from the barrier of the Great River Flows East. It was far from reaching the height of the legendary supreme divine art. However, Lu Ping's bold attempt this time had succeeded. It could be said that he had laid down a foundation for exploring and cultivating supreme divine arts in the future. If one were to say that Lu Ping's sudden appearance on Frost Island and barely fought to a draw with Zhang Shi, who was at the peak of the core forging realm, and many second-generation cultivators felt that it was inconceivable, then in the Yingtian Dao Plaza, Lu Ping's display of power that surpassed Daoist Xian Sun and Daoist Xian Su from the very beginning also gradually made people feel that it was only natural. However, when Lu Ping's new divine art combination was completed, the effect of his attack was even comparable to the combined attack of Daoist Xian Sun and Daoist Xian Su, the 2 veteran late-stage core forging cultivators. This could no longer be described as simply amazing. 2 words suddenly popped up in the hearts of the 2 Daoist Xian Sun and Daoist Xian Su, monster. Lu Ping's sudden explosion caused Blue Ocean Sect, who was originally keeping up with Jinling's progress, to be left far behind once again. When the restrictions in the Central Palace were destroyed by the combined forces of Laozu and the Daoist Masters, Jinling destroyed 6 rainbow restrictions and took first place without any suspense. Songhai's sect had destroyed the 5-colored restriction formation and was tied with Xianling's sect for second place. Initially, Songhai's sect's progress was far ahead of Xianling's sect, but at the last moment, Feng Shutao suddenly took out a 5-colored restriction-breaking talisman from his pocket. Under the shocked and furious gazes of Dongwu ancestor and Zhang Shi, he easily destroyed a half-colored restriction formation, allowing Xian Ling's sect to catch up with Songhai sect. However, one should not forget that Xian Ling's sect still had the help of Daoist master Qian Daofeng, a formation grandmaster. Therefore, without the help of a formation master, Blue Ocean's sect was destined to be ranked behind Xian Ling's sect. Hai Yan's sect and Shui Yan Pavilion each destroyed 4 rainbow restrictions, but Shui Yan Pavilion had a formation grandmaster, so they were ranked ahead of Hai Yan's sect, which only had 1 formation grandmaster. The remaining 11 rainbow restrictions were destroyed by the cultivators of the other 4 sections. Among them, Copper Sword Laozu and his disciples took the 6th place with their powerful sword cultivators. Linggu sect's Lingyun Laozu took the 7th place with the help of his sect's formation grandmaster. Sanming Laozu took the 8th place, and Feiyu sect took the last place. The moment the restriction in the central palace was destroyed, 20 to 30 treasures suddenly shot out from the central palace. Qian Daofeng and the other 2 formation grandmasters, who were already prepared, suddenly clapped the formation plates in their hands. The formation that was used to weaken the restrictions suddenly flashed again, but it was a light barrier cage that enveloped the entire central palace, trying to trap all 20 to 30 treasures within it. In the instant that the protective barrier was erected, 20 to 30 treasures collided with it, producing sounds of various sizes. However, they were all repelled by the protective barrier. However, at this moment, an inconspicuous object that looked like a wine cup suddenly hit the barrier among these treasures. Poof! A bowl-sized hole was easily smashed through the barrier, and it flew rapidly toward the edge of the dojo. When the barrier was broken, the 3 formation grandmasters spat out a mouthful of blood at the same time, each with a look of horror on their faces. No one knew the power of this restrictive formation better than the 3 of them. A treasure that could easily break through the barrier. What exactly was this wine cup-like magic treasure? Just as the wine cup was about to sink into the spatial crack at the edge of the dojo, a blue brilliance suddenly shone through the air, but it could only freeze the wine cup in midair. After a moment, a mellow fragrance suddenly rose from the wine cup, and the blue light turned into nothingness in this mellow fragrance. But just this moment of pause was enough. Jiang Tianlin Laozu had the abundant void mirror floating above his head, staring solemnly at the small wine cup in front of him. If someone was in front of him, they would notice that Jiang Tianlin Laozu had closed his breathing and even his pores. The wine cup seemed to have sensed danger, and when Jiang Tianlin Laozu appeared in front of it, it tried to fly away again. However, Jiang Tianlin Laozu did not use his hand to grab the wine cup in front of him, but once again used the abundant void mirror to freeze it in midair. Then, without waiting for the wine cup to break free again, the abundant void mirror once again emitted a beam of light to cover it. This time, the beam of light was golden. Just as the wine cup broke free from the shackles of the blue light, the golden beam of light flashed and disappeared, and the wine cup also disappeared in midair. Jiang Tianlin Laozu turned back, and at this time, there were already other treasures trying to escape again by taking advantage of the hole that the wine cup had just broken. Jiang Tianlin Laozu forced all these treasures back with one palm, and at the same time, helped the 3 injured grandmasters to replenish their shields again. Just at the moment that the inconspicuous small wine cup broke the formation shield, there were many cultivators who realized that this wine cup was unusual. Whether it was Dongwu Laozu or Feng Shidao, they were already ready to make a move, but both of them were a step behind Jiang Tianlin Laozu. In the end, they could only watch Jiang Tianlin Laozu put this small wine cup, which was very likely to be a treasure, into the abundant void mirror. In a battle between masters, what was lacking was this moment of effort. This also made Dongwu Laozu and Feng Shidao, who were both at the peak of the early Dharma stage, once again realize the true gap between them and Jiang Tianlin Laozu. That wine cup just now is the first treasure that our sect has chosen. Jiang Tianlin Laozu said to the various Laozu with a smile. It was able to break through the formation shield set up by 3 grandmasters when it had no owner. Reverend Qian Daofeng muttered to himself, then asked in disbelief, "Could that wine cup that you took be a spirit treasure?" Qian Daofeng's words caused all the Laozu present to be shocked and moved, and they stared at Jiang Tianlin Laozu with shining eyes. Dongguo Laozu and Feng Shidao both looked dejected. At this moment, the two of them were more and more convinced that the wine cup just now could only be a spirit treasure. If they had made a move just now, even if they were a step slower than Jiang Tianlin, they would still have been able to cause a chaotic scene. Even if they were unable to take advantage of the situation in the end, and even if they had sent the wine cup into the crack in space, it would still have been much more worth it than letting Jiang Tianlin obtain a spirit treasure so easily. Lu Ping also knew about spirit treasures because he had once observed celestial phenomenon Laozu's tribulation. In order to prevent the tribulation from failing, celestial phenomenon Laozu had given him a storage ring, which contained several treasures of Jinling, and among them was a spirit treasure. Lu Ping had learned from his teacher Lu Tianling that there were only a few spirit treasures in Jinling, and each of them was the treasure of Jinling's sect. They were the accumulation of tens of thousands of years of inheritance in Jinling. Usually, only celestial phenomenon Laozu, Tian Fan, Qianxue, and Tian Kong, who were at the mid-Dharma stage and above, were in charge of these treasures. After Lu Tianling took over the position of sect leader of Jinling, in order to strengthen his authority, celestial phenomenon Laozu had given a spirit treasure to Lu Tianling. However, Lu Ping did not know what this spirit treasure was. The so-called spirit treasure was a spirit-nurturing magic treasure that had been refined with the 9 treasures. After going through the test of the thunder tribulation, a wave of pure yang qi would be formed in the magic treasure, causing the magic treasure's spirituality to increase greatly, and then advancing to an even more powerful spirit treasure. In the face of everyone's greedy gazes, Ancestor Jiang Tianlin smiled and said, "Everyone, there isn't much time left. I think a lot of cultivators have already been attracted to the dojo to ambush us. Instead of thinking about snatching the wine cup that might be a spiritual treasure from my hands, you should hurry up and find the treasures in the palace. After that, you can think about how to break out of the encirclement. Otherwise, the longer we delay, the more cultivators will ambush us outside." After saying that, Patriarch Jiang Tianlin walked towards the treasures that had fallen from the shield. He was ready to choose the second treasure. Chapter 664. The Laozus of the various sects watched as Jiang Tianlin and Laozu walked leisurely to a group of treasures and put a huge cauldron, which was obviously a magic treasure, into the abundant void mirror. The eyes of the Laozus present were practically spitting fire. A spiritual treasure could be related to the foundation of the various sects in the North Sea, but the sects had thousands of years of inheritance, so at least 3 to 5 spiritual treasures could be passed down as the foundation of the sections. However, how many magic treasure-level cauldrons were there in the entire North Sea cultivation world? Xianling's sect Sea Boiling Cauldron and Jinling's Nachuan Cauldron, there were only these 2. But now, Jiang Tianlin easily put away Jinling's second magic treasure cauldron. How could the Laozus of the various sects be willing to accept this? What's more, if Lu Ping's 3 pure true pupils' magical power was not wrong, the magic treasure cauldron that Laozus collected by Jiang Tianlin was very likely to condense 2 or even 3 cauldron treasures. It was a cauldron of a higher quality than the current Nachuan cauldron. Lu Ping and the others secretly broke into a cold sweat. The strange atmosphere at the scene seemed to be a little careless, and the Laozus of the various sects would gang up on Jinling. After Jiang Tianlin Laozu put away the cauldron, he seemed to be aware of the atmosphere at the scene. He glanced around and seemed to be talking to himself, but also seemed to be talking to the crowd. Just the treasures that overflowed from the central palace already have a magic treasure-level cauldron. Then, what kind of treasures would be hidden in this palace? Jiang Tianlin Laozu's words immediately shifted most of the Laozus' attention. After all, treasures at the level of spiritual treasures and magic treasure cauldrons, except for Xianling's sect and Songhai sect, if other sects obtained them, they would probably give them up under the threat of these sections. Before the 2 Laozus of the Shuiyan Pavilion and Haiyan sect fought, with the close cooperation between the 2 sects, they had the right to compete for these treasures. But now, Just looking at the two sects standing on opposite sides, one would know the result. As for the sects joining forces to snatch Jiang Tianlin, this was even more of a joke. Even if Jiang Tianlin was forced to give up the treasures in his hands now, when they returned to North Sea, which sect could withstand the wrath of 2 late Dharma adepts of Jinling and a total of 11 Dharma adepts? Now in the North Sea cultivation world, after Tian Fan and Tian Shui Laozu had advanced to become adepts, the combined forces of Tian Fan and Tian Shui Laozu were already seen as equivalent to a late Dharma adept. Now, with the huge number of 11 Dharma adepts, Jinling had long been called a quasi-large-scale sect by the North Sea cultivators. After the destruction of Fei Ling's sect, the North Sea cultivation world had the most hope of becoming a large-scale sect, reconnecting with Central Plains, and being accepted by the cultivation world. Jiang Tianlin saw that his words had caused the greedy gazes of the various sects Laozus to subside, so he bowed slightly to everyone and said, "If that's the case, my sect's chance to choose 2 treasures first has been used up. Next, each sect will decide the order of choosing according to the results of each sect's attack on the seal. Since my sect was lucky enough to be first, I will not decline this responsibility and choose first." After saying that, the patriarch of Jiang Tianlin's divine telekinesis enveloped all 20 to 30 treasures, ignoring the interesting expressions on the patriarch's faces. This kind of selection was also a kind of test for the cultivators. The cultivators could use their divine will to explore to their heart's content, but they could not touch the treasures with their hands. As for the treasures in the boxes that were sealed with spirit sealing talismans, they could only rely on luck to determine which one was the right one. To put it bluntly, this kind of selection was a test of the cultivator's foresight, knowledge, and luck. At the same time that Jiang Tianlin used his divine will to carefully examine each and every treasure, the various sects Laozu and core forging stage cultivators were also using their divine will to check if there were any treasures that their respective sects were interested in. At this time, Jiang Tianlin Laozu was in a dilemma between a spirit forbidden box, a spirit nurturing treasure with 9 treasure restrictions, and a refining Grand Master's inheritance book. Jiang Tianlin Laozu's hesitation also made the other sect's cultivators' hearts hang in midair, because the 3 treasures that Jiang Tianlin Laozu was looking at were obviously the top treasures among the 20 to 30 treasures. There was no need to mention the top spirit nurturing treasure, the purple spirit forbidden box, according to the harvest that Laozu had obtained in the restriction area, should at least be a heaven stage spirit treasure, and the complete refining Grand Master's inheritance book. Jiang Tianlin saw 2 people's names on the cover of the book, which meant that this book should at least be the inheritance of 2 refining Grand Masters. The value of this book was even greater than any of the complete inheritance books that Lu Ping had obtained before. Just when Jiang Tianlin Laozu seemed to be dazzled, he suddenly heard Lu Ping's urgent voice transmission, "Martial Uncle, the purple jade slip on the left is very important. Please be sure to pick it first." A look of surprise flashed across Jiang Tianlin's face. He then wrapped his divine sense around the purple jade scroll on the left and carefully examined it. However, he couldn't find any useful information from it. If that was the case, why was Lu Ping so eager to obtain this jade scroll? Judging from Lu Ping's tone, it seemed like he hoped that Jiang Tianlin would give up all the important heritage books, top-grade mystic treasures, and top-grade spirit items, but he would still want this purple jade scroll that didn't seem to be of any use to Jiang Tianlin. Jiang Tianlin Laozu's expression changed, and he turned his divine sense slightly. He saw a seemingly inadvertent mark on an inconspicuous place on the purple jade slip. This mark made Jiang Tianlin Laozu raise his eyebrows, and he seemed to have guessed something. When Jiang Tianlin Laozu was young, he had also gone to Failing Mountain and obtained some inheritance about Failing Sect. Later, it became an important factor in Jiang Tianlin Laozu's rise from Jinling. Among the opportunities of Failing Sect that Jiang Tianlin Laozu had obtained, there was also a purple jade slip. Jiang Tianlin Laozu had repeatedly examined it, and at the same place on the jade slip, there seemed to be an inadvertent mark left behind. Although the jade slip he obtained was very important, it was a remnant of Failing Sect's inheritance. Jiang Tianlin Laozu still felt that the contents of the jade slip were incomplete, and he had not used it back then. Could it be that this jade slip contained the remaining half of the inheritance that he had obtained back then? If that was the case, after combining it with the part of his inheritance, its value would barely be comparable to that of the complete inheritance of weapon refinement. However, how did Lu Shenping discover it? Although Jiang Tianlin Laozu still had some doubts, he chose to believe Lu Ping in the end. He reached out and took the jade slip. Under the surprised gazes of the other sects, he smiled at Feng Shutao and said, "Brother Feng, our sect has finished choosing. It's your turn now." Although Feng Shutao did not understand why Jiang Tianlin would choose a jade slip that he could not see the contents of, it was obviously a gamble. This was not Jiang Tianlin's usual style of planning before taking action. However, Feng Shutao still suppressed his doubts and quickly put away the inheritance book of weapon refinement that Jiang Tianlin had been hesitating about. This caused many of the other sects' Laozu to sigh secretly. Not only were the cultivators from the other sects surprised, but many of the cultivators from Jinling were also confused. When Sage Xian Su saw Jiang Tianlin Laozu walking over, he hesitated for a moment before asking in a low voice, "Senior brother Jiang, this?" Jiang Tianlin Laozu raised his hand to interrupt Sage Xian Su's question. He turned around and set up a sound barrier. Then, he looked at Lu Ping and asked in a low voice, "Kid, now is the time for you to tell me why you chose this jade slip, right?" Sage Xian Sun and the others looked at Lu Ping in surprise. They did not expect that Jiang Tianlin Laozu's choice of this jade slip was Lu Ping's idea. Moreover, it seemed that even Jiang Tianlin Laozu did not know what was in this jade slip, but Jiang Tianlin Laozu chose to believe Lu Ping. Lu Ping was also quite touched by Jiang Tianlin Laozu's trust. However, when he saw the slightly reproachful gazes of Sage Xian Sun and the others, he still smiled and said, "Martial uncle, why don't you check the contents of the jade slip first?" When Jiang Tianlin Laozu heard this, he smiled awkwardly. He had chosen this jade slip as a gamble. After choosing it, he only wanted to ask Lu Ping for the reason, but he forgot that he could check the contents himself. Sage Xian Sun, Sage Xian Su, and Sage Xian Chen all looked at Jiang Tianlin Laozu. Suddenly, a green light streaked across his hand, and the restriction on the surface of the jade slip, which was used to prevent divine senses from invading, was instantly broken. Jiang Tianlin Laozu sent his divine sense into the jade slip and carefully checked it. He frowned, then threw the jade slip to Lu Ping and said, "This seems to be the pill formula of an extremely high-level pill. Moreover, the contents of the pill formula do not seem to be complete. There is only the second half. What are you going to do with it?" When Lu Ping heard Jiang Tianlin Laozu's words, the last trace of apprehension on his face disappeared. After receiving the jade slip from Jiang Tianlin Laozu, he checked it and confirmed Lu Ping's judgment. Lu Ping immediately beamed with joy. Sage Xian Sun coughed and said, "Martial nephew Lu, what exactly is it? Since it is only half a pill formula, you should have the most say in this matter since you are an alchemy grandmaster." Sage Xian Sun's words were actually to protect Lu Ping. If this half-step pill formula was chosen by Jiang Tianlin Laozu because of Lu Ping's passion for alchemy, and its actual value was not comparable to the inheritance of alchemy, Lu Ping would inevitably be reprimanded when he returned to the sect. Lu Ping understood Sage Xian Sun's good intentions. He smiled at him and said in a low voice, "Spirit forging pill." "What?" Sage Xian Chen exclaimed in a low voice. Then, as if realizing something, he hurriedly covered his mouth and put it down. He looked around and realized that the cultivators of the various sects were all focused on the treasures that were circled. Not many people were paying attention to Jinling. Only then did he relax. Among the 4 late core forging sages present, the one who desired the spirit forging pill the most was undoubtedly Sage Xian Chen himself. This was because Sage Xian Chen knew that with his cultivation, if he did not have a great opportunity, he would not be able to enter the Dharma realm in this lifetime. Now that he suddenly heard the news of the spirit forging pill formula, Sage Xian Chen was undoubtedly the most shocked. "You're tuning into the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.